Hey everyone, Samia Khan here with your FOX10 News Now update. It is Monday morning. Hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. I'm very excited to be here with you guys. In just a couple minutes, Rick D'Amico is going to be joining me straight from the morning show because we have a lot of weather to talk about. That's right, there's some crazy predictions out there. A flash flood warning in effect, or flash flood watch in effect, I think today through tomorrow evening. It's pretty crazy. I do know that they did a couple stories yesterday on the evening newscast, sort of a preview of what's to come potentially. So while I wait for Mr. Weather expert himself, Rick D'Amico, I'm going to play this story for you guys so you have a rough idea of what is possibly in store regarding these pending storms. So let me just pull this up for you guys.
With a big portion of the desert.
And here it is.
With a big portion of the desert Southwest expecting 2 to 3, maybe even 4 inches of rain and the potential for storm-like weather, Valley organizations are gearing up.
That means that we will have our crews on standby, ready to go.
While Mother Nature has a mind of her own, there are some simple things you can do to be more prepared.
The big thing really is have batteries available. Know where your flashlight is.
Even though losing power can make you feel like you're living in the dark ages, companies like SRP have taken notifications into the 21st century with Twitter, Facebook, even text messages.
You may be out and you can get a text message telling you that your power's out.
And although smartphones may be helpful, don't forget to use your head, especially when it comes to flood safety.
With this much rain forecast over the next 24 to 36 hours, we're concerned that there could be the potential for some pretty significant flooding impacts.
That's why experts at ADOT are reminding drivers to go a little bit slower, stay aware of road warnings, and if you get caught in a tricky situation, pull over.
The best idea if you get caught on the road and it's a heavy downpour, you're uncomfortable, is to get off the freeway as soon as you possibly can and just wait until the rain moves through.
Alright guys, so that is a brief preview of what's to come. In case you forgot what rain looks like, here is a reminder of just how bad it can possibly get during these storms that happen, these monsoon storms. I know that Celeste Rodriguez this morning was in Mesa. Mesa fire stations, in fact, are giving sandbags out in anticipation of the pending storm. So anyone out in Mesa who thinks they need sandbags just to prepare for possible flooding, you can go ahead and do that by going to any of the fire stations in Mesa. According to firefighters, they say bring your own shovel, fill the bags 1/2 to 2/3 full. The bags should lie fairly flat when filled. Overfilled bags are too firm and do not nestle into one another. Tight bags make for a leaky sandbag wall. Tying bags is not necessary. So if you are in that neck of the woods, want to get some free sandbags, then head on over to the fire department. Meanwhile, according to the National Weather Service, a flash flood warning is in effect today through tomorrow. Parts of Arizona could get drenched by rainfall in the next couple days. We know that the flash flood watch has been issued for all of southern Arizona as well as central parts of the state during the daytime hours on Monday and into Tuesday. According to forecasters with the National Weather Service, it's possible that we get between 1 and 2 inches of rainfall, and with some spots actually even getting possibly 3 or 4 inches of rainfall. So definitely be safe because rain is ahead. Joining me now is Mr. Rick D'Amico. Rick, you are insane. You know, sunglasses don't protect you from the pending rain.
No, I was going to say you don't need these today.
It is a very...
Are these yours?
Yes, I own many pairs of sunglasses.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know where I found that you can get the best sunglasses? Now, see, I'm kind of an old guy. I'm not like trendy like you. Target. That's where I get my sunglasses.
Yeah, that's not
$15.
as trendy.
Yeah.
Not as trendy. But
Okay, so,
lots of rain ahead, apparently. I was just reading to them what the National Weather
some kind
Service...
of delay here or something?
Yeah. They get us about 20 seconds after
Oh.
we actually say the things we
In case
say.
I say something like bad, like you're afraid, like if I say...
Well, the thing is, even if
a
you said
dirty word
something
or something.
terrible, it's highly unlikely that we'd be able to stop it from airing.
Okay.
So watch your words, Mr. D'Amico.
Is this your breakfast?
Yeah. So wait, Douglas Krantz is saying, SK, this is not a monsoon, this is a tropical storm, there's a difference. No, but monsoon is a season.
Yeah,
right?
let me explain this again. Monsoon is a season.
Yeah.
It's not a storm.
So a
It's
storm
one of the
that
most
happens
common.
during-
Yeah, it's one of the most common mistakes made among people, even in the media. They'll call it
Right.
monsoon is a season.
Right, and so
the-
any storm that happens during the monsoon is technically a monsoon storm.
It's a monsoon storm. Now, the correct definition of monsoon is a seasonal change in the winds that affects the weather. And in the summertime in Arizona or in the southwestern part of the United States, a southerly flow of wind is created by a huge high pressure system to the east of us. Wind flows around a high pressure system in a clockwise fashion. Okay, it's called an anticyclone. So when that sets up because of the intense heating of the surface of the United States, continental United States, and we pick up this southern flow, and that picks up moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of California, pulls it in here, and that's our monsoon. Now, the National Weather Service used to define the monsoon as 3 days of a 50-degree dew point temperature. You know what, let me explain what a dew point temperature is.
I know the
dew point is the temperature at which moisture in the air condenses into a cloud.
See, I always associate dew point with fog
It is fog.
because growing up in Fresno, there was a ton of fog in the
Yeah.
winter. So that's when dew point was relevant because for me, it was once our temperatures hit the dew point, you knew that it was going to be a foggy day.
That's exactly right. So
I was a big
let's
weather
say
fan
the
as a
dew
child.
point. Let's say the dew point is 70 degrees. That's the temperature at which moisture in the air condenses. So when the air temperature reaches 70, it's reached its total capacity of moisture. So the moisture becomes a fog or a cloud.
Right.
Fog is a cloud on the ground.
Right.
All right. So now the National Weather Service has changed the definition of monsoon here for Arizona to be calendar, on a calendar, so it ends the last day of September.
So it's still
So you could call this
the
a monsoon
monsoons.
storm if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
However, the dynamics are just a little bit different because there's a tropical system located about 300-400 miles off the coast of San Diego, and it's called Tropical System Number 16E.
Do we have like graphics that we could show the people?
I didn't set them up, and the weather our weather computer is like 12 miles away.
Oh yeah. But I guess I could pull up the National Weather
Call it
Service.
National Weather Service, and
Whoa.
you go to National Weather Service Phoenix if you like, and it might even.
But
be
even looking at the national one.
Yeah.
Let's just look at that national map really
Okay.
quickly. There we go.
Okay.
This is very green. This must be the flood warning
It
areas.
is. It's a flash flood warning.
Oh yeah, flood warning. That's pretty much most of our state.
Yes.
Most of our state.
Goes all the way up to not quite Flagstaff. Click on a satellite over there on the left. See it right up here? Yeah, there, right there. Click that on. Okay. Now go down. Scroll down. Now pick up. We're going to go with infrared, and we're going to go with Southwest U.S. animation. See that? Southwest U.S. animation. There you go. This is perfect.
You're so good at this.
Okay. Now the blob. Now the different colors don't indicate rain. What the different colors indicate are height of the clouds. Okay.
Oh.
And the thinking and
What does that
science.
mean?
Yeah, the science behind this is the higher the clouds, the more intense the rain.
That's so interesting. You would think that the lower the clouds are, the more intense the rain because it's closer to you.
Yeah,
logically, but
it has
it's
to
not
have,
logical.
In other words, it has. We're talking vertical, but it has to have depth. In other words, it has to have a lot of
Right.
rain. You know, the bigger.
So are the dark, which colors, like I'm saying the center of it is the highest clouds?
Yeah.
So like the green, bluish
Right.
colors.
Yeah. So now this is infrared, which means it's returning the temperature. And it's actually measuring the temperature of the clouds. But that's the infrared satellite technology. Now see, there's two things involved here. The first thing is immediately off the coast of San Diego, you see a low pressure system or a tropical system called 16E. Okay, and that is a low and it's intensifying. And there's a counterclockwise flow around that system. It's a cyclone or a tropical cyclone. Now the blob over to the right,
Right here.
yeah, that's just this big plume of moisture that's moving up, caught in the airflow and moving up into the southwest. Okay, so this low over outside of San Diego is going to be moving into this area here. Okay, and it's going to be moving across Arizona.
So is that the thing
that
that's
means
going to
that-
hit it?
yeah,
That's the thing that we're waiting for?
Yeah,
Not
that's
this.
going to cause the most intense rain. Okay, because when a low pressure system like that interacts with moisture, air in a low pressure system is rising. Okay, now as air rises, okay, it cools, right? Because the temperature in the upper atmosphere is cooler. Okay, when air cools, it can't hold moisture.
So then it has to release it.
It has to release
in the
it.
form
It reaches
of
a
rain.
dew point into condensation,
I
fog,
see.
or clouds. So as the air rises, the moisture condenses, creates clouds, and some of these clouds, based on the vertical motion and also upper air activity, can be very intense. So they're saying there could be very intense thunderstorms and or a lot of rain. Like 1
right.
to 2 inches of rain. We
Which
get
is a
7
lot.
inches a year. So there's a lot of rain
Well,
involved
according
in
to
this.
the National Weather Service, there are areas that could get even 3 to 4.
I saw that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's what's happening. And somebody else asked me, well, is this typical? No, this is not typical. The National Weather Service has called it anomalous. Anomalous amount
Although,
of moisture.
wasn't it last September that you guys we got all the rain? You guys, I wasn't living here yet.
Where
so
were
it was-
you? You're in
I was
Southern
in
California?
LA. Yeah, but I remember seeing the floods on the news.
Yeah.
And it was last September.
Yeah, it was
Is
anomalous
this supposed to be worse than that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's more rain. If
That flooded a
because
lot
according
of.
to the predictions of 1 to 3 inches of rain, yeah.
And how much was it last year?
I don't recall, but it wasn't 3 inches. Maybe an inch, inch and a half, right?
Really?
I don't know. My
I don't know.
memory's
I'm
not
asking
good.
you.
I don't know. I'm a senior citizen. I remember everything right now. You don't think I'm a senior citizen?
Okay, Nico.
Okay, no, wait a minute. So, this will probably, when this low moves across the area, be fast moving.
This one.
Yeah, and it'll be out of here by Tuesday night, Wednesday morning.
So this only shows the height of the clouds. Where can we see the actual?
Want to see the
rainfall?
radar? Okay, go
Yeah.
back one. Go back a page. Go up there, yeah. And then you're going to go find radar. See radar? This is National Weather Service now. Go right there to the radar. There you go. Okay, then Phoenix. Okay.
There we go.
And then you could if you click loop, and then you'll animate.
This one?
No, go composite all the way up to the top there. Composite. Click the composite loop. Okay. Now there you see. Now these returns, and there's usually a key on the right side of the radar map. These returns indicate some really super duper heavy rain.
Wow.
Okay. On this radar map,
Where's
the blue is light rain.
right here? So is it raining outside right now?
Yeah.
This is what's going on right now.
Right.
There was no rain when I came in this morning, and this is what's happened in the last 3 hours.
It just shows some very light clouds right in the blue over Phoenix right now. But you can see immediately south of us in Tempe and Buckeye, it shows rain.
I feel
And
like I have to
immediately to the southeast, look at that's very, very heavy rain.
Well, look at what it looks like outside. Now that I look at the tower cam, I guess it is
Yeah.
raining outside. It's pretty gray.
It's kind of like the way it all works. So
Yeah, back to the radar though.
now this is rain that's falling without the interaction of that low pressure system yet. So that low hasn't come across the area yet.
So it hasn't hit us yet.
Well, I mean, that's
Well, like right
this
here,
is a
this is
double-barreled
down-
system.
this is
This is
downtown
barrel
Phoenix.
number one. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is over here.
Yeah.
Downtown Phoenix, we're right here.
Right.
We haven't really gotten it yet,
No, not yet.
but we're going to.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh-oh.
Now, over the years, City of Phoenix and other of their surrounding municipalities have done a super job of trying to create drainage basins so that when it does rain, the water has some place to go.
Versus
See,
flooding.
it used to be that there was no place for the water to go. And when you had even a storm of even less than an inch, very heavily used intersections in the valley would flood and you couldn't move.
So they just didn't take that into consideration when building the
They
city?
never got around to it because the population grew so rapidly,
So,
I guess.
but-
But now they've done a good job at that.
Do other cities build that stuff into the city?
Hmm. Like if you drive around up
So
in
we didn't.
North Phoenix, well, you mean other cities outside of the Southwest? Yeah.
Is it because we
Because
were in the
it
desert?
rains a lot, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
you just assume that, oh, we're good, we're in the
Yeah.
desert.
Yeah. So in my part of the valley, they created a number of parks, and these parks are in essence drainage basins where the water drains into these parks, and it'll stay there until it evaporates or percolates into the ground.
Okay.
I've told you everything I know about meteorology now.
Wow. I feel like I could do the weather.
There's
now.
one other thing.
What's that?
We think, or some people think in the science, and I don't keep up with it like Corey and Dave Muncy and Christy and the other weathercasters, but some people think that this has a lot to do with El Nino, which is a shift in the wind flow, and we think that's what the winter is going to be like here.
It's going to be
this
colder
winter.
and more
colder
wet.
and more wet and rainy.
That means more snow in the higher elevations.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
exciting.
it
People
is.
like snow.
Well, snow is important.
I'm
for
not
our,
a big fan of driving in the rain personally because it tends to result in traffic.
Yeah.
I
But don't you think it's better to, well, where were you born? Were you born in L.A.?
Fresno.
You were born in Fresno? Well, you've never driven in snow, right?
Yeah, I have. My first job was in Massachusetts. My first reporting job
Where'd you work?
in Springfield, Massachusetts. ABC.
No kidding. Well, so
Yeah.
you know what it's like. What would you rather drive in, snow or rain?
Rain, but actually snow because I think less people are willing to go out in the snow. So then everyone on the road is kind of driving slower anyway. So I still think you get to the destination at the right time. The thing with rain isn't scary enough to prevent you from driving. So people still drive, and then they don't know how to drive, and then they get in a crash, and then it backs up traffic, and then I'm late to work.
That's very true.
And that's all I'm saying.
If you lived in Seattle, for example, it wouldn't be that much of a problem because people have a lot of experience in driving through the rain.
Right, but
when
people
you're over here,
And LA has the same issue.
Yeah.
People just don't know how to drive in the rain. I know
Right.
last week, I think it was sometime last week or the week before, or last week when LA had that record rain,
Mm-hmm.
a friend of mine on Facebook took a screenshot of like his Google Maps or Apple Maps, and just so you could see every single crash
oh my
in
God.
Southern California. It looked like the whole freeway was just covered in crash notices. It was that bad.
There's this old wives' tale, and it's probably semi-true, and that is that because we go for long periods without rain, that oil and other chemicals from the automobiles gets into the pores of the concrete of the freeways, and then when it rains, this kind of comes up and becomes real slippery, and people slide all over intersections, and they follow too close and don't have enough distance for braking, and that causes a lot of
drive too
accidents.
fast.
And drive too fast, thinking you could drive that 70 miles an hour on the freeway when it's raining versus 75 miles an hour when it's clear. Yeah, it's always
People
been a
make
problem.
bad decisions. Bad decisions.
So this is going to move fast, and we should be out of here and back into clear weather on Wednesday and Thursday. And then Friday and Saturday, we're getting into 100 again. Now, normal for this time of year is 98 for a normal
So
high.
we're going to be a little bit above average. But today and tomorrow, we are way below average.
Way
The only
below,
problem
yeah.
is it comes with rain. I wish those were
Yeah.
the temperatures, but there was sunshine involved.
Yeah.
Personally, it would be
That's
a lot
like-
better.
That's Southern California weather when it's in the 70s and
Look, I'm
clear.
even fine with 88 and sunny at this point. The sad fact, the truth is I have gotten used to thinking 100 degrees is cool now. My body has adjusted. By the way, I want to acknowledge D just rocking. Haha, Rick, people in Seattle and Portland are the worst drivers in the rain I've ever seen.
Oh, really? Well, I wouldn't know.
According to D.
You probably know more about it than I do. I was just trying to pick a place where it rains a lot.
Oh.
I could tell you a place that I moved here from Lansing, Michigan. And in Lansing, Michigan, I think they only had like 30 sunny days in the whole year.
Ew.
Yeah, it was like either partly cloudy or cloudy. I mean, you go 2-3 months without seeing the sun.
People must have suffered from seasonal affective disorder there.
Yeah.
Lots of sad
Yeah,
people.
Sure. And it rained a lot. The Midwest is, we call it the crossroads of storms in America. It's where all the
Right.
storms go to the Midwest. I don't think I've ever been to Columbus, Ohio, when it wasn't raining. I have in-laws in Columbus. We visit them occasionally.
And it's always raining.
Every time I'm there, it's raining.
Patio Heat says, think about all the newer drivers who haven't experienced the rain due to the drought. They will be this year.
Yeah, it's too bad that this storm isn't moving into California, especially Northern
I
California.
know San Diego's supposed to get it, though.
Yeah. San Diego's, the last time I was in San Diego, they, in Point Loma, they remodeled or redid the street over there and put in a median and planted new palm trees.
Nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
That's pretty.
However, there's a drought and they can't water the trees, and the trees are turning yellow.
But now the water's coming to San Diego. The
hopefully-
problem is the rest of California needs the water because the agriculture doesn't happen in San Diego. Central California needs the rain so that our crops,
You know how
our fruit
important,
and vegetables.
you know how important
that rain.
agriculture is in California to the rest of the nation?
I do.
It's primary importance.
I know. I get so excited when I go to Fry's here and I get fruit and it's from my hometown area.
Fresno?
Yeah, I got really excited because there's this man-made fruit. I'm pretty sure it's man-made. Pluots, because it's a plum, apricot combination.
Oh,
They're very good, and the ones at Fry's are from Tulare, California, which is just about 45 minutes south of Fresno. They have outlet malls there, and I used to stop at that Starbucks regularly, driving between Fresno and LA. And so anyways, the point is, I was at Fry's and I made a choice to support my hometown's economy by buying the pluots. And they're really good, just in general, though.
It's a combination of what again?
A plum and an apricot.
Oh, that sounds great.
They're so good. They're also known as, some people call them dinosaur eggs. Have you ever heard of that fruit?
No,
The dinosaur egg?
Does it look like a dinosaur?
I'll show you.
You notice Google has a new logo, right?
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
egg. See, dinosaur egg fruit.
Oh, yeah, it comes up on Google.
That's.
Oh, yeah.
It's
I've had these before. What do you call them?
They're called pluots, but
Oh.
then they're also, some people refer to them as dinosaur eggs. But dinosaur eggs are really just a trademark name
I
from
see.
some company. So guys, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about, I'm just going to show you so that you guys can also.
Is that considered the Imperial Valley there, Fresno?
No. Imperial Valley is in Southern California.
Imperial Valley is Yuma. When you get it past Yuma into California, that's the Imperial Valley?
I think so. It's in Southern California.
Yeah.
I do know that.
So what do you
much.
call it? The Inland Empire? What do you
The
call
Inland Empire is like Riverside and stuff.
it? Okay, so what's...
We're in the San Joaquin Valley.
San Joaquin Valley. See, it's so big and so huge, it's beyond my comprehension. You know. All right, so anything else you want to talk about?
And there's the rain.
Yeah.
Lots of rain. Who else? They're so good, SK. I agree. Apple Snapple is a fan of those pluots.
Who's Apple Snapple? Is that a viewer?
Yeah.
Oh.
Robert saying looks kind of like a plum. It's because it is half plum. Think of it as a mixed child. It's like if a plum met an apricot and fell in love and they reproduced.
Okay.
You would get
It's good.
this. And we all know that most mixed children look fairly attractive, just like most mixed fruits. Taste mostly delicious.
They are delicious. And what does Apple Snapple say they're about that? No. What
They're
is it?
about as big as
Mr. Andrew Ladybugs? Is that what that says?
Mr. Mountain Dew ladybugs. I
live
live in the
Inland
Empire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's true.
See, at night, sometimes when I am sitting out on my patio having a cigar, and, you know, I just usually have sparkling water. One of the radio stations sometimes I listen to is KNX 1070. You ever hear of that?
I've heard of it,
Yeah,
yes.
it's your news,
I know.
it's your all news all the time
I
station
know.
in Southern Cal.
I'm aware.
And when they do the weather, you know, they have in the Inland Empire and in San Juan King Valley, and so I pick up these names not knowing
San
where they
Joaquin
are.
Valley doesn't usually get covered in Southern California news.
Why is it too far?
Yeah, it's Central California. It's halfway between LA and San Francisco. It's its own market.
It's pretty far, huh?
Yeah.
They have their own television stations.
Yeah,
and
Fresno, Market 54.
Wow, I didn't realize it was
Fresno,
that big.
Visalia,
Yeah.
at least 1 million people.
And you never worked there?
I only interned there. I interned there when I was in high school at NBC and in college at ABC there.
The affiliates. No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
ABC does own a station. in
Yeah, they
Fresno.
do.
Yeah.
It was fun. Good times. My childhood.
And it's a desert climate, right?
Yes, which is why I thought I would be totally prepared for Arizona,
But it's
because
different.
I grew up in Fresno and I was like, I can do the dry heat. I did not anticipate any humidity though. In Fresno, we don't have humidity.
You don't get that monsoon.
There's no
moisture flow.
monsoon season.
But wait a minute. You told me earlier that you get fog.
Yeah, fog throughout the winter. It's crazy fog.
But that's
it's
humidity.
thick fog, yeah, in the winter.
Oh, in the winter.
Yeah,
oh, I see
we
what
have
you're saying.
it was crazy fog. I remember there'd be times I'd drive and you could literally just not see in front of your.
You okay? Visibility was like almost zero, is what you're saying. You gonna be okay? Here, you want some of my water? You got water? Okay. So that is because of all the agriculture and the moisture coming off all the plants and everything. The agriculture, or where does the moist air come from?
The sky.
This guy.
That's your job. You're the meteorology.
I don't know much
expert.
about the climate of the San Juan King Valley.
I'm just letting you know that there's a lot of fog and you can't see in front of your car.
Okay. But your San Juan King Valley is far from the ocean, right?
Yes, it's Central Valley. Fresno is just about a little over an hour from Yosemite National.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
So you've probably driven through
Yeah.
Fresno then.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
so the big story, of course, is the weather, and that's what's going to happen. And don't be surprised if we get some severe thunderstorms associated with this and some very, very heavy downfalls of rain. 1 to 3 inches of rain in the metro area. I mean, that's a lot of rain.
That's a lot of rain.
Yeah.
That's too much rain.
It is too much at such a short period of time.
Let's look at that radar again.
Yeah.
Look at that. All that rain. So really, if you're in this area, you're already experiencing the rain down here.
Yeah, the green, the yellows,
Right
the
here.
oranges, and the reds are heavy, heavy rainfall.
Like Florence, kind of. It looks like the heavy rainfall, though, is going northeast.
It does, yeah.
Like we're not going to get it in downtown Phoenix.
You'll see one big word out, 75 ticket, be Vice President calling an event.
Oh, did you hear that?
What, the vice president?
The vice president is holding an event.
Is he going to announce his candidacy for president?
I don't know. I feel like he's over it now.
There are some people close to him that said it's a given. It's already decided, and there are others that say he's undecided.
It's a given that he's not going to do it?
It's
or
a given that he is.
Well, he should
Yeah.
at this point, but
Yeah.
he hasn't, so I don't know what he's waiting for.
Well, the popularity of
Hillary, or lack thereof.
Hillary is going down, and the vice president is a good speaker.
He speaks very well,
Yeah, excellent speaker. Some of
Like-
the things he says are kind of different,
but he
weird.
speaks the way a president should speak.
Yes, he
in terms of the
does.
cadence and the delivery
Right.
and the presence.
Right.
He has good stage presence.
He does have good stage presence. He's a good performer on the stage and on the dais. you
But he
know.
did really good on that late night show with Colbert too.
Yeah. See. So I've always felt.
Look at him
that-
just standing there. He's like, I'm ready to be president.
I've always felt that in order to be elected
Mm-hmm.
president, you have to be a good speaker.
I agree. I also think that you have to have an element of swag.
An element of what?
Like swag, swagger.
Swag, yeah.
Just like
You mean charisma?
Yeah.
Presence, yeah.
Charisma, presence, likability, whatever you want to call it.
Right. Because if you want to get anything done with the Congress, you have to use the bully pulpit of your presidency. And if you're a good speaker, Barack Obama,
Very good speaker.
President Barack Obama is probably one of the best presidents we've ever had. Very good speaker when he wants to be. Sometimes he sounds a little boring, but when he wants to be, he can be a good speaker.
Okay, between Obama and Bill Clinton, who was the better speaker?
Bill Clinton. No, Bill Clinton, because Bill Clinton
Is he like
didn't
the
depend on the
all-time?
teleprompter.
Is he the
spoke from his
all-time
heart.
best speaker in terms of presidents in recent
Well,
years?
I think Ronald Reagan.
I'm asking. Oh, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
wouldn't-
Ronald Reagan was
Yeah,
better.
I don't know that.
But there were some presidents that were just awful. And I'm
Who was
not.
the worst?
Richard Nixon was pretty bad. He was, sorry. Jimmy Carter was really a terrible speaker.
That's so mean, though. He has cancer. Don't be mean.
I know. I've interviewed him 2 or 3 times.
Oh,
you
yeah,
knew-
we talked about
You knew
this.
that. Yeah, he's a very nice, gentle man. Some say his presidency wasn't very effective for anything, but Ronald Reagan was an excellent speaker. Bill Clinton, excellent speaker.
Dan in Florida
I
agrees
don't
with
think
you.
George Bush was a very good speaker.
Which one? Senior or junior?
Junior, second. George Bush, 2.
I think a lot of people would say that.
Yeah. I
Well,
think some leaders of Congress are not good speakers, and you wonder how they got elected.
how do you feel about, let's see, McCain?
John McCain is not a very good speaker.
Well, he's not Obama good.
No.
But I like that he makes
He's very
jokes.
polite and very quiet.
He makes very good jokes when
Yeah.
he speaks.
Yeah.
It gives him this personability. I think jokes are essential.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's what they say is holding Carly Fiorina back.
Well,
Because she has yet to show that humorous side.
she's very serious.
Yeah,
But she knows all. Oops, I gotta
Oh,
go.
man.
But she knows. I've been talking about Carly Fiorina for like months now. She knows all the issues. She knows what the issues are, both internationally and nationally, domestically and around the world, and she has ways to solve these problems. So she's one of the few candidates that seems to be on top of everything as far as the issues are concerned. Whether that makes her a good president or not, I don't know, because sometimes you get too involved in the minutia of everything and you can't get anything done.
Well.
Now, Donald Trump, I gotta go. Let me say this about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is one of these broad stroke guys.
Right.
I'm gonna fix this and I'm gonna make the country great again. And then if he does get elected,
And using
it'll be
vague
his people that
generalities.
will do that and carry out the details.
Right.
And I saw one other thing about Donald Trump. Somebody said, what is the magic of Donald Trump? Why is he so popular? And a very well-known political pundit by the name of Mark Levin said, the thing about Donald Trump, he doesn't speak in specifics, doesn't really know all the issues, but he has a love for this country. He
And he
shows that he
sounds
loves this
convincing.
country
He
so
sounds
much.
convincing.
Yeah, that people like him because of his personality.
Well, on that note, you can go to your meeting and we're going to listen to potentially the next Democratic candidate for
Is he
president.
making a speech?
He does.
Okay, I gotta go. Bye.
All right, bye.
To a whole range of things. But this is an issue that is what we're doing today is using all of you who are here today being honored as evidence of what we've already known but has sort of fallen by the wayside. Way back 150 years ago when I wrote the crime bill, everybody today talks about it like it was about increasing penalties. It didn't increase penalties. States did that and a lot of other things, the Sentencing Commission arranged, but not the crime bill. A third of all the money in the crime bill was for prevention. We tried to divert children from prison, the young people from prison, and with drug courts we set up. They weren't supposed to be put in prison. They were supposed to go into drug courts and be referred to rehabilitation centers and get help. And the essence of the legislation was a very controversial notion back in 1994. It was called community policing. And, you know, Chief Bratton, Commissioner Bratton up in New York, who was a commissioner in Los Angeles and a commissioner in Boston, he's had a number of important jobs. He told me a story about there was a woman who, an African-American activist in Los Angeles, who every time she'd see him, she'd use a Maasai. The Maasai tribe in Africa had an expression when they see you, when they greet you. And the expression is translated to English, I see you. I see you. That's the opening greeting, I see you. What it means is, I value you. I see you. I respect you as another human being. I see you. The problem today, because we cut funding for community policing nationally beginning of the Bush administration by 87%, it's awful hard for these law enforcement agencies to have people walk in the neighborhood being out. It's a highly intensive, resource-intensive undertaking. It used to be, when we first passed that legislation and put another 100,000 law enforcement people on the street, the only way a police department could get federal funding for a cop at the time, a police officer, was they had to add to what already their roster was. They couldn't replace police officers, and you had to be out in the community. And violent crime dropped precipitously around America because law enforcement officers did what you all are doing now. They set up skateboard parks. They provided for criminal justice training in schools. They talked about going through the neighborhoods and reaching out to people and ending homelessness. That's what used to happen. It used to be, at a time, back from 94 to about 2001, police officers knew the name, not generically, knew the name of the man or woman who ran the corner grocery store. Knew the name of the people who lived on the block. Gave their card to those individuals and said, if there's a problem, call me directly on my cell phone. And people did, because they knew the law enforcement officer wasn't going to give the person away. I remember one case in Philadelphia. A woman had a lot of drug activity outside her apartment on the corner, a particular corner. But she knew if she called the police directly, they'd show up, say that she had reported them, and then when those guys got out of jail, they'd come back and get her. So when the local police officer doing community policing had given her his card, she knew that when she dialed that number, frightened dialing the number, and saying there's action going down, there's a drug deal going outside my house, he'd never give her away. He'd never give her away. I was with Chuck Canterbury, who's the head of the FOP, just a moment ago in my office. 3 of the officers, I think, today are members of the FOP. He was telling me when the crime bill was passed, the community policing was passed, in his hometown, the police department he still belongs to, that they set up in every neighborhood, like in Wilmington, Delaware, my hometown, mini precincts. Just an abandoned house, a place where everyone knew that the local law enforcement officer would be there. He said, and we ended violent crime, basically, in the neighborhood. He said, now my son is a police officer, and that house I used to work out of is a crack house. There's no law enforcement officers in the community because we've cut their funding. I can't get a hard estimate of how many local law enforcement officers, local departments have been cut or unable to fill their quotas because salaries are flat. The job is tough. So one of the recommendations when we put together, the president put together this task force on what should we be doing, it wasn't just body cameras and all the things and not riding into town with an up-armored Humvee into a neighborhood, et cetera. He said we're going to focus on community policing. Drug diversion. There's no reason why nonviolent criminals, kids with the first offense, should be in jail for a drug offense. People were designed to put in jail were the dealers. There's a whole lot more we could talk about. But the thing I'm so happy about being here, it is not hyperbole to suggest that you officers who are here today are champions of change. I know the Portland example because my son, out of college, ran a emergency service shelter in the largest abandoned, basically Catholic parish and Catholic high school out there, joining the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. People are in the streets, touching people. I see you. I see you. What's happened now? A lot of the neighborhoods that need the most help, the community doesn't see that law enforcement officer sitting in her squad car. They don't know that she has 2 kids at home and loves to play basketball. And the law enforcement officer in a tough neighborhood looks at a corner and sees a kid with dreadlocks and sees a gangbanger, instead of a kid who has the opportunity to be a great poet or author. I see you. The truth is, we're not seeing each other anymore very much. And so the whole idea of the President's task force and the 21st century policing is get more police officers into the communities to better know the residents, to work together to make neighborhoods safer. This is a great idea, kiddo. I'm not joking, because you're exactly right. The value isn't that the person who wears it is committed. The value is, in large part, a police officer wears it and it says, I get it. I understand the neighborhood. My son used to be the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. And he became one of the few attorneys general, and the Attorney General in Delaware has more power, not because he was my son, but the way the Constitution is written, than any Attorney General in the United States, because in Delaware, the Attorney General's office is the only one that can prosecute any felony. There's no local DAs, there's no county attorneys, only the Attorney General. They all work for my son, or now the new Attorney General, as my son passed away. And written into the crime bill was another provision. And the other provision was that there be community prosecutors. What that meant was the prosecutors would actually go out and hold town meetings in the community. Walk in and sit down at the community center and ask the community what's going on. Because guess what? Everybody in the community knows who is committing most of the crimes. Career criminals, the study I did 20 years ago, 7% of all the criminals commit about over 50% of all the crimes. So they'd sit and they'd say, and they'd whisper and say, well, so-and-so, you gotta look for them. They're the ones. They're the people. An awful lot of local law enforcement people have been put in a tough bind because mayors, county executives, city councils, police officers aren't the ones that draft a law that says you got to stop and frisk. They're concerned about it. Police officers aren't the ones that say, you know, here's what we're going to do, we're going to flood the neighborhood. I got a great idea. Let's drive in an up-armored Humvee when you've got a problem. I'm not joking. The cop on the beat's not the one. They only carry out what the elected officials tell them the law is, what they want to do. So what I'm really excited about here, by the way, all of these, 5 or 6 are being honored today, law enforcement officers, stand up again. I just want the people to see. Stand up. got an idea. I figured out how we got to get engaged in the community. They didn't sit in their cars or their offices. They went out in the community. There's a great skateboarder, this young man. You say, oh, skateboarding, what's that? Guess what? You guys can sit down. Guess what? You know what I found out when I wrote the crime bill? You know what had the biggest impact on violent crime in comparable neighborhoods in projects? And then we compared 4 neighborhoods where the public housing project existed, high-rises. Where there was in the basement of the high-rise, a Boys or Girls Club, the violent crime rate was down over 27%. And guess what? Boys and Girls Clubs are great operations, but guess what? Every Republican and Democratic businessman is on the board of a Boys and Girls Club. So we put $20 million in the Boys and Girls Club. And they had skate parks. They had midnight basketball. They kept school gymnasiums open after the schools closed, so there's some place to go. Raise your hand if your community, any of that stuff is going on now. Not many. Not many. But those who are fighting for it, it matters. And the thing that excites me about this is the self-initiative here. But folks, you know, there's bad apples in every bunch. There are bad senators, there are bad vice presidents, there are bad presidents, there are bad congressmen, there's bad nurses, there's bad everywhere. So we've seen some bad cops lately, and it's been highlighted. We got to give the good cops, we got to give them some ammunition, and not, I don't mean ammo. Today we expect law enforcement to solve the social problems in the middle of a poor neighborhood. Come on, man. I have really nicely written statements my staff draft. This is my heart. About kids in the neighborhoods. You know, there was that famous thing when I was a little kid, like at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, there used to be a thing about Boys Town, and it was out in Indiana, I think it was Indiana. And there was a great line where a little boy is carrying his little brother, and he's saying, "He ain't heavy, father, he's my brother. He ain't heavy, father, he's my brother." There's not a kid in these tough neighborhoods given a half a chance can't do as much as any kid in a wealthy neighborhood. When I say champions of change, in this particular interest, I call you champions of understanding. Champions of saying, let's go back to what we used to do. I'll close with a comment, a statistic. When, in 1994, the community policing legislation was passed, it was a very close vote, but it passed. On an open-ended question in the Gallup poll, they asked the American people, what one thing would you like your government most to work on? And if memory serves me, I'm getting close. I'm not positive exactly. But my recollection was 37% of the American people said crime. Could have been 34, could have been 39, but in the mid-30s. That same poll was taken this past spring. You know what percent of American people said crime? 3%. Because crime is way down all over America, except some neighborhoods that need help. Now, the reason I bothered to tell you that is, in fairness to mayors and county executives and local elected officials, if you have pressure in your city to restore a park, build a new youth center, deal with better street lighting, or maintain the police force, you do the street lighting. Because only 3% of the people are really concerned about crime. It leaves an awful lot of people out. So I'm not picking on local law enforcement, local officials. Let's get something straight. Chief of police can do no more than what the mayor lets him or her. So what you're doing, I'm going to use as the best of my ability as a catalyst to try to continue to get back to basics here. It's not going to change a whole lot. And by the way, police now are feeling put upon. Although the total number of police shot and killed is not up compared to what it was before. But if you're a local cop, you're feeling kind of put upon in a lot of places. Like you may be a target because of the obvious targets that occur. If you're in the neighborhood, you're beginning to think my kid's not safe when I let him out the door because they'll mistake him for a gangbanger. We got to fix this. We got to fix this. We got to fix it. The way to fix it is I see you. And the only way you can see me is for me to get out of my car. The only way you can see me is for me to show up in a skate park. The excuse, as they used to say in the Senate, a point of personal privilege. I used to work in the east side of Wilmington, Delaware. I coincidentally happened to be the only Caucasian who worked in that area because I was a lifeguard in a big city swimming pool. And the area that's in the projects, the area is now called the Bucket. And it has a pretty high crime rate. My son Bo used to drive down with a cop, plain clothes, in his car. And there are two big basketball courts down there. If you want a game, you want to play basketball, that's the place to show up. And he'd get out of his car with his then 6-year-old son, my grandson who's now 9, and he'd go over and he'd hang out with the guys playing ball. Basketball wasn't a sport, he was okay, but he wasn't as good as those guys were. He played football and soccer. And they talked to him. They knew him. They got to know him as the chief law enforcement officer in the state, but he showed up where they lived. And he'd occasionally, there might be a patrolman in the city, he'd go over and knock on the window and say, "Get out of your car. Get out of your car." You know what I'm talking about. So we got to change the atmosphere, guys. We have an obligation to keep every citizen in our cities, our counties, our states safe. And the single best way to do that is for to actually build a relationship. No, not every police officer has to be a social worker. We ask an awful lot of them already. But just let us see who you are. It's still dangerous. It's still dangerous. The danger goes down in direct proportion to the community believing you are here to help me. You're here to help me. You're here to protect my kid. You'll be able to know the difference between my kid and the kid with the clock. So guys, for all of you are here to honor people who are honored today. I say stay with us, because we're going to grab hold of this. The President and I are absolutely committed. Absolutely committed. Law enforcement officers are decent, honorable women and men. The vast, vast majority are doing everything in their power to make communities safe and honor the Constitution. And honor the Constitution. And the vast majority of people in the neighborhoods are decent, honorable people. We just want it to be right. There's a small percentage that are a criminal element that is real. There's a small percentage of law enforcement who abuses their power. We can't let that cloud our vision about what this is all about. So I'm sorry to take this much time. And I'm really not sorry, because we need you. We need the people in this room. We need the law enforcement. I'm telling you, every one of the major law enforcement organizations I've been working with for longer than you can imagine. Ask any one of them, ask the press, ask any one of them whether I've ever not been absolutely straight with what's going on. We want to do it the right way. We've got to give them the resources, and we've got to be more like the people around here today. Thank you for letting me talk to you. As my grandfather would say every time we walk out of his house, he'd say, "Joey, keep the faith." And my grandmother would yell, "No, Joey, spread it." Thanks.
All right, guys, that is a wrap on Joe Biden's speech in D.C. What do you guys think? Does he sound presidential? Do you guys think that he is practicing for his run for president, or do you think that ship has sailed and he's just going to remain VP and let Hillary have it? Or Bernie. Not saying Hillary's going to get it. I want your take. You guys can throw that into the chat room. I would like to read your perspective. Moving on, I know there's a story that a lot of you guys want to know about, and I'm talking about the I-10 shooting suspect. As you may or may not know, this past Friday night, authorities arrested a suspect in connection with at least the first 4 I-10 shootings. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up his mugshot right now in case you guys missed it over the weekend. This is Leslie Allen Merritt. Leslie Allen Merritt Jr. I just realized that I did not show you the photo and that you guys were looking at me the whole time, that I thought you guys were looking at the photo. So I'm just going to acknowledge the awkwardness here and show you guys the photo now of Leslie Allen Merritt. This is the individual who was arrested in connection with at least the first 4 shootings on Interstate 10. He is a suspect in that case. There are a few stories that we have done on this shooter. I'm going to go ahead and play a couple of them for you guys now. First, I'm going to play for you this story. This actually comes from Fox National. Even though we did our own coverage of the arrest of the I-10 shooter, I'm always intrigued to see how national outlets cover local stories. So what I'm going to do is pull this up for you guys. Oops. Maybe they don't have it. Maybe I can't find it. Ugh. There's too many files. It's very difficult to sort through all of these. Okay, you know what? While I go ahead and find that story, I'm going to play this story that we did of the I-10 shooter in court. Stand by. I'm going to play this for you now. This aired over the weekend.
Merritt Jr. made his initial appearance in Maricopa County Court this morning, where he was read his charges.
All right, Mr. Merritt, you are here on the following charges. 4 counts of drive-by shooting, which are Class 2 felonies. 4 counts of intentional acts of terrorism, which are Class 2 felonies. 4 counts of aggravated assault involving a deadly weapon or dangerous instrument, Class 3 felonies.
The judge went on listing another 16 felony charges, including criminal damage, endangerment, discharging a firearm within city limits, and disorderly conduct involving a weapon. Merritt Jr. was taken into custody last night after investigators forensically linked him to the weapon used in the first 4 freeway shootings. During court, the county attorney asked the judge to set a $1 million cash bond.
The fear that was instilled in the occupants of those vehicles, as well as the fear that was instilled in everyone driving on the I-10 and Valley freeways for several weeks, was of such an intense nature, and that if this suspect is released or such a $1 million cash bond is not put in place, the threat to the community must be preserved.
All I have to say is that I'm the wrong guy. I tried telling the detective that. My gun's been in the pawn shop for the last 2 months. I haven't even had access to a weapon.
He went on to say he cannot afford the $1 million cash bond.
I could never afford that bond, though.
All right,
I got 2 kids, you know.
If you'll step to the clerk, she'll give you your paperwork.
The judge says if he does meet the bond requirement, he cannot return to the scene of the alleged crime, cannot contact any of the alleged victims or witnesses, and is not allowed to possess weapons. In Phoenix, Courtney Griffin, Fox 10 News.
All right, so that is a story that Courtney did over the weekend. I do see in the chat room Rachel saying that kid ruined his life. Dee saying, yep, Rachel, as well as his babies, too. Well, again, keep in mind he is a suspect. He is innocent until proven guilty. That's something that his father really wanted to emphasize. His father spoke with Troy on Friday night. We did the full raw interview for you guys that I'll play in just a couple minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and play this story that Ty Brennan did regarding the court documents that were issued over the weekend.
Please give me your full name.
Leslie Allen Merritt Jr.
Merritt Jr. made his first appearance in court Saturday. DPS says the 21-year-old is responsible for at least 4 of the I-10 shootings. He's now facing 28 charges, and in court, Merritt told a judge he was not in possession of a gun.
All I have to say is that I'm the wrong guy. I tried telling the detective that. My gun's been in the pawn shop for the last 2 months. I haven't even had access to a weapon.
But newly released court documents say otherwise. Quote, at the time of the shootings in question, the firearm was not in pawn status. The court documents also detail how investigators collected bullets and fragments from shot-up vehicles and linked Merritt to them. DPS explains how they then were able to narrow that evidence down to a specific type of gun and a specific lot of serial numbers.
The crime lab test-fired the firearm pawned by what we believe to be Mr. Merritt. The test-fired bullets were matched to bullet fragments from 4 casings over the last weekend in August.
The document goes on to say how Merritt told investigators he always carried a firearm with him. Merritt now being held on a $1 million bond. Ty Brennan, Fox 10 News.
All right, so that was a story that Ty did. What I'm going to do now is actually play for you the full raw video of his initial appearance. As you guys know, they make their initial appearance before a judge. You saw parts of it in both of those clips. So I'm going to play the full thing. Leslie Allen Merritt Jr., IA. And you guys can watch this. It's just about 4 minutes long.
Leslie Allen Merritt Jr.
And what's your date of birth?
6/20/94.
All right, counsel, you want to announce, please?
Morning, Your Honor. Ed Leiter with Sheridan LaCrone on behalf of the state.
All right, Mr. Merritt, you are here on the following charges. 4 counts of drive-by shooting, which are Class 2 felonies. 4 counts of intentional acts of terrorism, which are Class 2 felonies. 4 counts of aggravated assault involving a deadly weapon or dangerous instrument, Class 3 felonies. 4 counts of criminal damage, Class 5 felonies. 4 counts of endangerment, Class 6 felonies. 4 counts of discharging a firearm within city limits, Class 6 felonies. And 4 counts of disorderly conduct involving a weapon, Class 6 felonies. I have appointed an attorney to represent you. The next court date is going to be a status conference on September 25th at 8:30 in the morning. The county attorney wishes to make a statement in this matter, so I'm going to allow them to do so. Mr. Leiter?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, at this time the state is asking for a $1 million cash bond for the suspect. The state's position is that the suspect presents a dramatic and profound threat to the community. There are, of the counts that the court outlined, there are 4 separate victims. And while no one was a victim of a gunshot wound, they were all victims traveling high rates of speed on the freeway. The fear that was instilled in the occupants of those vehicles, as well as the fear that was instilled in everyone driving on the I-10 and valley freeways for several weeks, was of such an intense nature, and that if this suspect is released or such a $1 million cash bond is not put in place, the threat to the community must be preserved. And beyond that, what this suspect is alleged to have committed creates such a substantial fear in the community at large that it justifies the cash bond requested beyond the significant prison time that would accompany the charges that he's currently facing. The request is supported, and we ask that you impose that. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Merritt, based on my review of the information that has been provided to me, first of all, I do find that there is very sufficient probable cause regarding all of these crimes. I am going to impose a $1 million cash-only bond. If you're able to post that bond, you're going to be under the supervision of pretrial services on the electronic monitoring program, which is the ankle monitor. That will be installed before you're released from custody if you post that $1 million cash bond. You're not to return to any of the scenes of the alleged crimes. You're not to have any contact with alleged victims or witnesses. You are not to possess any weapons. And those are your release conditions if you're able to post that bail.
May I speak?
Let me just warn you that anything you say can and will be used against you at future court proceedings. People often think they can help themselves by making statements about what did or did not happen. You really should reserve any conversation about what did or did not happen with your attorney, and you'll have an opportunity to talk to an attorney.
All I have to say is that I'm the wrong guy. I tried telling the detective that. My gun's been in the pawn shop for the last 2 months. I haven't even had access to a weapon.
Okay, I understand that that is your position, and that was reflected in the Form 4. I will again tell you that based upon the information that was provided to the court, I do find that there is ample probable cause in this matter.
I could never afford that bond, though.
All right.
And I got 2 kids, you know.
If you'll step to the clerk, she'll give you your paperwork.
All right, guys, I'm going to read a couple of your comments in the chat room before I move on and play that raw interview with the father of the suspect that you just saw right there. Tess saying, I wonder why there isn't an attempted murder charge, whether or not he actually hit anyone. He was nevertheless shooting at people, vehicles. Douglas saying, like I said, if you don't have the money, you can't have a fair trial. You're guilty before being proved otherwise. D saying he doesn't look like the smartest apple in the bunch. D rocking saying it's easy enough to confirm if his gun was in the pawn shop for 2 months. Lots of different people with this different perspectives. Going to go ahead and play this video again just as a visual while we go ahead and prepare for this raw interview that I'm about to play. It's a phone interview that Troy did on Friday night with the father of Les. So I'm going to go ahead and play it for you guys. If I can just find it. Hold on 1 second while I find this audio. Oh, as soon as I closed it, I found it. So we are going to listen to it now. Give me a second while I... Alright. I'm just going to show you the mugshot of the suspect, but we are listening to the voice of his father.
All right, Mr. Merritt, start by giving me your name, please.
My first name is Leslie.
Okay.
I'm Leslie Merritt Sr.
Okay.
My son is the one that everyone is claiming to be the I-10 shooter. And I'd like to get a few things straightened out.
Okay, go ahead, please.
The first thing is, if anybody bothers to do a little research and contacts his boss who he works for in landscaping, he was at work during all these incidents. So unless he's a magician, which I can tell you my son's not, I don't see how he could be in two places at once. Secondly, if he did pawn a gun, it was not his. It was for someone else to help him out because my son has a huge heart to the point of sometimes being gullible and naive in trying to help people. And thirdly, as a former serviceman, all three of my children have been drilled instinctively to know the value of human life, respect for a firearm, and what not to do with one, and how to handle one. Yes, my son does enjoy his firearms. It's a hobby, just as millions of other Americans have the same hobby. To immediately assume that because DPS, under public pressure, is screaming, "We got him," oh wait, that's right, DPS has screamed, "We got him," 2 other times this week alone, and they didn't have him. So to naturally assume that because DPS under public pressure is screaming, "We got him," is asinine. I would just ask that all the public, A, respect my family's privacy, B, consider that my son is a 21-year-old, hard-working, loving, family man, father of 2, who is trying to survive. And lastly, do not judge him until all the facts are in. Because again, DPS has said in the past, we've got the shooter. Yet, it turned out DPS was wrong. How many times in the past have we seen law enforcement rush to make a case and blame bogus ballistics or bogus statistics or bogus facts to make their case, only to turn around and say, "Oops, we're sorry, we ruined your life." So please, before anyone rushes to any judgment, give my son the benefit of the doubt. Remember, we do live in the country of the free, the home of the brave, and we are all innocent until proven guilty in a court of law or until we make a confession.
So do you feel like DPS just went off half-cocked here and tried to make an arrest? Because in all fairness, I hear exactly what you're saying, but in all fairness, DPS with that last arrest did not say that they had their suspect. They said they had a person of interest.
Yes, I believe they went off half-cocked. I believe they're feeling the public pressure, and they're jumping on any little piece of information. And I know there's the tip line. It's blasted all over the freeways. But what's the reward? Did anybody stop to consider that maybe somebody said, "Oh, this guy did it because of the reward"? Or that somebody that did it.
2 hours ago, look what he posted.
Oh, 2 hours ago, my son posted on Facebook, "Work was super, overtime work, an extra hour today, and it's payday." That's off his Facebook account. Since you guys are delving into all the negatives, you guys should also take a look at his entire Facebook page. Yes, my son does enjoy his hobby of guns. But if you look further into his Facebook page, you'll see that he's also a loving family man. And yes, I do believe that DPS went off half-cocked and jumped to conclusions, and possibly somebody saw, hey, there's a chance for a reward. We know a guy that's willing to do anything to help somebody out that's in an emergency for their family. Let's get him to go pawn this. And if that's the case, I'm just going to say it. Give your soul to God, because if I find you, your ass is mine.
Well, all I will say to you is, this is, as you know, it's just an arrest right now, and anything that goes beyond this will be in a court of law with evidence, and DPS isn't talking much about what they have, so that's where we are.
But here's my problem. I understand DPS isn't talking much, but Fox 10 News, ABC 15, CBS, you guys are all talking plenty. Did you guys ever stop to think about the effect that your newscast has on a person's life after they're proven innocent, or after they're released, if they are released, or if they are truly innocent? And I don't know. You know, I would like to believe my son's innocent. I know my son's innocent, but that's not for me to decide, or you, or the general public. That is for a judge, a prosecutor, a defense lawyer, and 12 people in that box to make that decision.
Right.
And you guys are crucifying him on the news.
No, I don't know if we're crucifying him, but we're definitely identifying him, and, you know, we can't not report that. He's been arrested. That's public record, sir. And his booking photo will be public record, and all will be. It'll go out.
I understand the need to report it. I'm just saying, you guys are reporting it as though he's already convicted.
I'm not, sir. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Hello, Ron Hoon. So you heard the tail end of that Raw interview. I played the whole thing for our viewers.
Right.
It got a little intense, not going to lie. Obviously, father very defensive of his son.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have various takes in the chat room. For example, Mountain Dew Ladybugs doesn't believe he's the one. That's my feeling. Les Chow Mein wants to know, so will the sentence be light because he didn't hurt anyone?
Well, obviously, it would have been murder if he'd killed somebody.
Right. And Tim Perkins wants to know, what do they have on this guy? I'm in Texas and haven't kept up with the case.
What do they have on this guy? Well,
what proof?
I mean, the way we reported on it this morning was that the part we still don't know is, did someone phone in a tip on this guy? Because if so, we've been talking about the reward money is huge.
Well, I heard in the morning meeting that this one did not involve the reward.
Oh, did
that
you?
The reward
Okay.
is technically still available
Good.
because they determined they found the suspect based on police work. This is
Okay.
what I heard in the morning meeting.
Yeah. Well, my understanding is they did extensive forensics work and were able, but that still doesn't answer the question, how did they first get onto this guy?
Right.
And so...
I mean, I've been hearing talks about a pawn shop.
Yeah.
And a gun.
Yes, but see, his claim is that he couldn't possibly have done it because the gun is in the pawn shop. But if he did it, and then, remember, the first few shootings, because we think we might have been dealing with a couple of copycats.
After the fact.
The first, 3 or 4 shootings were full-on bullet holes straight through windows, and then after that it was more shattering. So, I mean, we'll see. The father is exactly right. You got to let it all play out, and in this country, you are innocent until proven guilty. So,
Right, but his dad did make a good point that sometimes because of the media coverage and everything, it always feels like the suspect, whoever, in whatever case it may be, tends to feel guilty until proven innocent. We just always get food in here, don't we?
Yeah, I thought we were very professional in the last 15 seconds by holding it together.
No.
As we were discussing this, because Pizza just walked in.
And Corey with the cowboy hat. Check out that hat.
Yeah.
Corey's back.
Oh,
It means
tip of the hat.
More food. But a lot of people have different takes on it. Nicholas says, doubt this kid did it. And I always feel like we do jump to conclusions. We don't jump to conclusions because we always say alleged and we say suspected. But just because we say it doesn't mean the general public understands that.
Right.
I really believe that when the general public sees the mugshot of a suspect,
They instantly think guilty?
yeah, we
Then
just
why
do.
aren't-
That's just how we're wired
Then why
as
aren't
people.
why aren't we seeing way more changes of venue? You can't even get, in the most high-profile cases anymore, you can't even get a judge to sign off on a change of venue. You could take this case, and if you're correct, and I think a lot of people are exactly the way you describe.
It's just you assume.
As soon as they see the picture, In their brain, they think guilty.
If you have a mugshot, you're a bad, like, people perceive it as, oh, you must have done something wrong.
Right. And so that being the case, and that mugshot's been all over the place already, and will be for continuing days, then you ought to take the trial. You could move it to, probably not Tucson, but you could move it to, I don't know, Denver, and it wouldn't. I mean, I don't think very many people would be seeing the mugshot in Denver.
Possibly, although it did end up being a national story.
Yeah.
D just rockin' asking Douglas, how is setting bail at $1 million cash equivalent to not getting a fair trial? Dan in Florida, danger to the public. Lucky he wasn't denied totally. SK, anything on the reward? Was he arrested on a tip? D just rockin', we just touched upon that briefly.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that it was a result of police work, so no reward was issued.
Right. There's still that missing link we don't know, but I'm sure we'll learn it in coming days or maybe at trial as to how did they first get on to this guy.
Nicholas thinks he's just a scapegoat, and he feels bad for this kid.
Really? Okay, so a lot of people are defending him.
This kid.
Did you guys ever stop to think about the effect that your news?
Oops. Let's see. Howla saying, I actually feel really bad for his dad and girlfriend. They were obviously blindsided. Nicholas saying, DPS ruined this kid's life. I hope he settles and gets bank. Let's see, just read a couple more comments.
The thing about it is, remember when that first arrest was made at the gas station on September 11th?
Extensive coverage right here on News Now.
Almost immediately afterwards, by the end of that day, after the arrest had been made, they were out saying, this is not our main suspect.
Right. They kept saying this is just a person of interest.
Correct.
Someone we're questioning.
So, I mean, I do think that people do need to give law enforcement some credit for, let's see, where are we now? Middle of the day on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
If they made this arrest on Friday, and they've had plenty of opportunity to back away from it, and they have not. And the point being that previously there was a lot of expectations set up from that earlier arrest, and almost immediately they came out, I mean, in a matter of hours, they came out and said, he's not our primary suspect. You don't hear any of those kind of statements coming out this time.
Right. Let's see. Les Chalmain saying it doesn't matter. Either this guy did it or someone working for the pawn shop. Either way, we have this shooter. Juice 632 says, what's the motivation? That's the only question I care about. Robert saying, I hear he hated the government. Juice saying, so go after random people. That doesn't connect with your assumption. Joe Foley says, if he's still only charged with 4, how many in total were actual bullet holes? I think they said a total of 11 shootings, right?
Correct.
And the other ones, it could be copycats.
Yeah, well, we saw the video early on of full-on bullet holes with entry points, into the windshield.
Right.
And then almost shortly after those first ones, which was just in those first, 4 or 5 days.
Right.
After that, it seemed like it was a lot of windows shattering. And that's why, I do think, Samia, did you notice when you drove in this morning that they still have the message up on the electronic billboard?
I did. Yeah, I noticed it throughout the weekend as well. But there's also the possibility that there are other I-10 shooters out there because this guy was only charged in connection with the first 4 shootings, and there were a total of 11. So they still need tips.
Correct.
The reward is still out there, guys.
And even copycats are going to be in huge trouble. So
you're getting a question from D, by the way, Ron.
Okay.
Ron, how do pawn shops in Phoenix deal with buying guns? I worked in a pawn shop that had to report all gun activity to local police departments.
Okay, that's a good. You might know more about it, D, than I do because I'm not quite sure what the reporting requirement is. We know there are a number of loopholes in gun laws, in terms of gun shows and that kind of thing, where you can buy and bypass some of the federal requirements. So I don't know exactly what the writing of the law is. But Dee, since you're right there with us live, except for on a 30-second delay, tell us more about that, if you would. I mean, go ahead and tell us about a few experiences that you had of people coming in and you bought a gun, and exactly what the process was that you went through, because I think we could all learn some of the kind of the minutia of exactly how it is handled at a pawn shop. I want to learn about that.
John Hoffman, I want to know, out of all the people in the valley, what made police go after this guy?
Well, so do we all.
Joe Foley, they were following him for 3 or 4 days before the arrest. Is that true?
That would be standard. I mean, they are going to... the thing about it is, people have to realize they really are going to be somewhat cautious. You lose so much credibility as a police department, as a county attorney's office, all the way through the process, if you just jump on a case that you cannot back up with the evidence. So I would absolutely think that they tailed him for a few days. So, okay, so here comes Dee. She says, when we took in a gun, we had to take a photo and send serial numbers, make, model, and any identifying marks to the police department within 24 hours. It is possible that this is simply the police doing what would be a long, involved work of checking with pawn shops. Would you not think, as high profile as this case was, what kind of cheese stick are you working off of today? Kraft?
Kraft.
Mm-hmm. Good.
String cheese.
Okay.
But not string. I never string the string cheese.
Yeah. Too much work. Yeah.
Especially when you're working here. I need one hand for the mouth.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we later find that this is good old-fashioned gumshoe police detective work, where they're checking all the pawn shops every few days, looking for guns that are being turned in. Because would it not make some sense to say, if you're running a police force, hey, let's check every pawn shop every few days and see if this guy didn't get cold feet, whoever it might be. I'm not saying it's this particular young man. That whoever the gunman is got cold feet and thought, I'm going to get rid of this gun and make a few bucks off of it and close out my books.
Wouldn't you just bury it or something? If you really wanted to get away with it?
Maybe if you didn't know what the system was.
I don't know.
Yeah.
D just rocking. You already said her.
Okay. Then we had to hold the gun 60 days before it could be sold again. Several times the police would come in and take the gun if it was possible it was used in a crime or stolen. So they had to know early on what the type of gun was they were looking at, just running their ballistics.
Right.
And so they had to hone in on whoever was turning in guns like this. And if whether it's this guy or somebody else, if somebody thought, hey, I can get it to the heat is getting way too much, I got to get rid of this thing, I'll just turn it into a gun shop, and then I'll be able to tell people later on that it was never, it couldn't have been mine because I had it in a pawn shop. See, here's the proof. But they're able to, obviously they're able to do timestamps and to check it, so I don't know. But that is really fascinating to know exactly how it works inside a pawn shop.
Thanks for that, D just rockin'.
Yep. D just rockin'.
Okay, so I think that concludes our shooter coverage for now. I know we're probably going to talk about it again this afternoon because multiple reporters are still working different angles of the story.
And I like how you say, for now, so you can leave your options open.
Yeah,
you don't want to say that's it and we're never going to talk.
No, we're definitely going to talk about it. Who knows, we could learn new information while Ron and I are up here, and then we could shift gears and talk about it again. But for now, I want to change topics, move on. I have Ron Hoon up here. Ron is an expert in many things. But the one thing I most enjoy speaking with Ron about tends to be...
This is the build-up to our football chat.
Politics.
Politics.
It's always so interesting.
It is.
Ron has so much information in his head.
Yeah.
I feel like I know a lot about politics now because of you. Oh my gosh.
Really? See, now I don't know about that pizza.
I want
That's
it.
a lot of dough without a lot of payoff on top, if you ask me.
I like cheese pizza.
It's got to be loaded up mushrooms, olives, sausage.
I like cheese pizza. Anyways,
Fascinating, Samia. I
time to
have
talk politics.
I have to tell you this.
Yes.
These numbers surprise me. They're a little
The
too
polls
early.
are crazy.
They're a little too early, and I'm not quite sure what to make about it, because I still don't think you get it the full picture until almost a week after a major event. So for them to have done polling, it was CNN and ORC, and hey, it was their debate. So they got the next angle to the story here as well. But for them to have done polling, in fact, look at that graphic. You know, when you were first looking at it, what are the dates? September 17th, 18th, and 19th.
So we'll just pull this up, because I don't know if I can play this whole story, because it might have clips from stuff I can't use.
All right, good. Let's do it.
But I can at least pull up these numbers. Check that out. Check out that poll.
Okay, so here's the thing. The first part of the polling was going on basically the day of the debate. So I don't know that it 100% fully reflects. People have a chance. The debate happens. I just feel like you have to give it a couple of days. They talk to their friends. They will meet down at the coffee shop. They discuss it. And then the next thing you know, you get you get some numbers, but I just think it's a little too early. It's a quick and interesting snapshot. I'm going to trust the numbers more that come out a few days from now.
Okay, fair enough. But looking at it, it's still surprising. Fiorina is now number 2.
It is surprising.
Yeah, look at that. Carson drops to 3. Fiorina makes an insane jump.
From 3% in the last
She
poll
wasn't
to
even
15.
in the first debate.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Well, and I think that's a large part of it, to be honest with you, because, what did she get coming out of that first debate?
Just
very little viewership, but a lot of hype.
A lot of hype. Lots and lots of hype.
A lot of hype coming out of that one. But the percentage of people that bothered to tune into the cocktail hour debate, as they were calling the first one,
yeah, right.
the happy hour, were negligible. So this was the first chance on a primetime stage, and these debates, Samia, there's a real question mark. Is it the Donald Trump effect, or is it not? I mean, if he wasn't there, would the numbers be half of what they are? Whether that's true or not, it's benefiting those who do well in debates.
Right.
So that Marco Rubio, who saw his numbers just about double in this poll, should thank his lucky stars that Donald Trump is running for president, even if these other, and same for Fiorina, for goodness sakes. Because if it is Donald Trump, he's bringing in numbers that we have never, ever, ever seen before.
I mean, he does make it much more interesting. Let's be real.
Yeah, no, he does. And I thought, one thing about him is I do think he has natural political instincts that are fairly impressive. Mm-hmm. Because I thought to myself, well, how is he going to get himself out of this jam?
Right.
Remember, because what we were talking about on Friday, where the guy gets up and says, we got a problem, it's too many Muslims in this country, and Obama is one. And I thought, and he's just shaking his head.
Right.
So I actually
He's like, our president is one. How are we going to get rid of them?
Yeah.
Or something.
And I thought his first response was ridiculous.
Yeah, everyone was upset. And you know what's amazing?
I didn't hear the question. The heck you didn't hear it?
You pointed out the guy in the back that was reacting to it.
Yes.
And then over the weekend, I saw so many people sharing some stuff about the guy in the back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, it's the guy that Ron pointed out the first time around.
Wow. See, now, I have to admit, during football season, I'm quite more focused on football. So, Samia, you're going to have to bring those little nuggets, those little gems in on a Monday morning.
Yeah, I remember. It was like, oh, wow, that's what Ron was pointing out.
But I will say this: Trump has a political instinct.
That's fine. Let's
oh yeah, here we go.
Stand by.
Yeah.
The guy. Let's rewind.
It's far right. It's that guy right over there.
This guy.
We have a problem in this country. It's called Muslims. We know our current president is one. When can we get rid of it? We're going to be looking at a lot of different things.
His reaction reaction is
Come
so
on, man.
good.
He is like the ultimate photo bomber
That
of
is
2015.
so good.
Show me a better photo bomber
That
this
was
entire
so
year.
He was he must have been aware that he was in the frame.
I don't know if he did. No, I think that was 100% natural because he sort of looks so.
In this country, it's called Muslims. We know our current president is one. When can we get rid of
We're going to be looking at a lot of different things.
Again, that's the edited down version. I
Yeah.
don't like that. I like the full 20
I like the
second
full one,
ramble of the
too.
guy. So, but Samia, my point being that I thought to myself, especially because we were talking about it on Friday, how is he going to get himself out of this jam?
Well, he canceled his appearance at that
Yes.
Heritage Action Forum.
Yes.
And he was supposed to speak. Everyone else spoke at
I
it.
know, that was unusual for
And
him.
then he still does his Meet the Press appearance, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Ben Carson.
Oh, is that right?
Is that, to my understanding? 'Cause
You know, I'll catch it live, but the only one I TiVo is Chris Wallace.
well, I mean,
which-
that's where all the headlines came out yesterday.
I will tell you this, Samia. Here's a suggestion for our politically savvy audience. It would be great to clip Chris's interview with Fiorina this weekend, because I am, and I bet a lot of our viewers are, fascinated to see. She needs to start showing a lot more of her personality than just the. Could you put it in a nutshell? How would you describe her personality so far? She
Serious.
was serious, passionate at some points, but
Serious.
somber at some points. And she just needs to, like I said on Friday, she better start showing some of her more, you know, that she's got the
Personality.
yeah, and just has a fun part to her personality, because people need to see that. I actually think that goes into the component of making up who you're going to vote for president. Do they have a sense of humor? Because that shows somebody who's well-rounded and is not just always angry all the time. We live in angry times because people feel like, well, hold on, we're all these years into the recession. I mean, out of the recession. That was 2008, 2009. Where are the good-paying jobs? I think people are so frustrated about that.
Well, it's just that salaries haven't gone up at the rate of inflation, and that's the big issue.
Correct. And so many jobs now don't even offer the full-time benefits that you used to see, you know.
I know, like health insurance.
Right.
DJ's rocking. Yes, I watched them on Meet the Press on Sunday. Rachel St. Fiorina seems quiet and feisty. Les Chaumain saying Trump has zero politician IQ. Rubio would have handled the question much better. So, you know what amazes me is that I felt prior to yesterday that Ben Carson could not get bad PR. He seemed like the guy that people would support. He was number 2. He seemed friendly. He seemed knowledgeable, intelligent, etc. But now there's this Carson backlash.
Yeah, well, you know, I think it shouldn't be surprising, because guess who is amongst those who's criticizing him? Somebody on the, you don't know this headline yet, but somebody else in the Republican field
Lindsey
is
Graham.
criticizing him, and you would think it's not Lindsey Graham, but maybe he is.
Lindsey Graham also is.
It's who is he?
Yeah.
Okay. And Jeb Bush, I'm sure, probably will today. We didn't hear much from him this weekend. No, it's somebody else who's much more
Rand?
conservative. Conservative, who you think probably wouldn't jump all over
Santorum?
a fellow conservative. Bigger than that. Much
Walker?
bigger. Much bigger. One of the big conservative names.
Oh, not running for president.
No, that is running for president.
Oh, Chris Christie.
No, I think way bigger than that, even just in terms of his poll numbers. 'Cause
Rubio.
Not
Are you just
yet
saying
that
Trump?
I've heard. No,
No, it can't be Trump.
Ted Cruz.
Oh, I've like named every single. The thing is, I keep forgetting Ted Cruz
I know,
exists.
I know.
That's the problem.
But Cruz is like, you know what? He is dead wrong. The Constitution makes it very clear there is no religious test for running for public office. And so he never should have. It blows my mind that
Ben Carson.
people are not aware. They're running for president, and they're not aware of what the constitutionality of various issues are.
Right. So basically, the gist is, if you guys did not follow, Ben Carson does not advocate a Muslim as president, saying if it is inconsistent with the values of America, that's when the faith of a presidential candidate should matter to the voters. This has gotten very awkward.
Well, yeah, sure. And, I mean, there's a group this morning,
CARE,
that is already out this morning saying he needs to withdraw from the race. I don't think he's going to do that.
I don't think he's going to withdraw
I think
from the
you
race.
can make the most outrageous comments, because some people think Donald Trump's been making plenty of outrageous comments. I think you can make the most outrageous comments, and that is one of the beauties of our country, is you still are able to say stuff, even if it's stupid, you know, and you're not going to be disqualified.
Here's the thing. This situation with Ben Carson, I think, is worse than Trump's situation on Thursday night with that audience member.
I totally agree.
In Trump's defense,
yes,
it's possible that he didn't clearly hear. It is still possible, that he did not clearly hear that audience member, or that in Donald Trump's mind he was just thinking of ISIS and the fight against ISIS. It's possible. Giving Donald Trump in this situation the benefit of the doubt.
Correct.
Because Trump did not make the comment.
Right.
And that's all I have to say.
And I do think that
with Ben Carson, the words came out of his mouth,
Right.
and everyone saw it.
Correct. You just can't do that. You can't take any group of people. I don't care how much you love them or don't love them. You can't take any group of people and say that they can't be president.
And here is my argument, and I don't know if people on the internet have made this argument or people in the media have made this argument, but who is Ben Carson to say that, given that his own group of people were oppressed once, and people probably said a black man would never be president? That's my pen drop. There you go.
The pen went down.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I realized this morning. I'm like, of all you, 30, 40 years ago,
Right.
would people
Yeah.
have been saying the same thing about you?
Right. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be, I don't know. Here's my take on what's happening. I think there is a lot of shifting going on right now, and I'll tell you why. I think that Ben Carson is going to suffer as a result of this, but I also think he's starting to lose support to the expense of his campaign that is shifting over to Carly Fiorina.
Right.
Because I do believe a lot of the Ben Carson support is coming from pro-life people. And Carly Fiorina's response, you probably still haven't had a chance to go back and look at that part, but where she dares President Obama and Hillary Clinton to actually watch the video that was produced, the one that's so controversial.
The Planned Parenthood one.
Because she is literally looking like she's fighting back tears as she's speaking, and she's so passionate about it that somebody who might be a Ben Carson supporter might have looked at that and said to themselves, wow, I'm getting more out of her than I do out of Ben on this particular issue.
And they might like the fact that she has this business background, whether
Correct.
you think she was good for her company or not.
Right. Yeah.
If most people's concerns are about the economy and jobs, you might look to a Carly, but realistically, you'd probably still look more to a Trump, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because of because of things that were brought up, like Carly cutting jobs, HP doing poorly, and then you compare that to Donald Trump, who seems to be doing financially well for himself, and then you suddenly think, well, maybe Trump understands business a little more than Carly does.
But do you not also have the vibe that Carly Fiorina would just not get herself in a situation where she throws, like Ben Carson did, an entire group of people under the bus?
Yeah, I don't think she would.
I think
For example, she was so careful when responding, the first question in the debate, responding to Donald Trump's comments about her face.
Right.
She was so careful in that moment to not
Right.
say anything that would potentially hinder her chances a vice president candidate.
Because I think part of this really for people who are going to vote in the Republican primary is, again, no matter who you're most passionate about, who has the best chance to defeat Hillary Clinton in the general election.
Right.
I do believe that is a huge part of the component when people actually vote. And remember, we're in the primary, so it's a state by state by state thing.
Right.
So I think that people would look at a Fiorina and they might say, well, I don't know, she's got some baggage. It looked like she did make some bad decisions as a business person. But I do actually think she could probably go toe-to-toe with Hillary Clinton in a debate. And she has way more of a chance, especially today, to win the nomination and do well in a general election than Ben Carson ever would, because that comment 100% guaranteed, Samia, will come back to haunt him if he is the Republican nominee.
Joe Foley, Fiorina is just riding the hype wave at the moment. Give it a month or two, she'll be back at number 2%. Or 2%.
Really?
That's what Joe Foley thinks out in the UK.
Yeah.
Frankie,
Well, Joe's pretty politically savvy, but funny enough, Joe, I don't know if you're up, let's see, 6 in the morning. That's going to be almost tea time in London, in the
it would
UK.
be 2 p.m.
2 in the afternoon. Tea time is at 4. But that was my question every Monday morning at 6. It's me and Brett Baer from Fox News Channel, and that was one of my questions, which is
this just a momentary thing?
I said, let's think, Brett.
The flavor of the week?
Yes. Let's go back and remember 4 years ago. It was Rick Perry, who was I believe he was at 30-some-odd%, and then he crashed and burned come that one debate. And then Herman Cain was close to 30%, and then there were some questions about his personal life that came out. And so then he kind of crashes and burns. So my question to Brett was, does this feel different? Are we in that cycle right now where we're so far out? Is it that, or does this feel different? Does she have staying power? And he said, at this point it's just too early to say, but it seems like she does, primarily because I don't see her putting her foot in her mouth anywhere close to what Ben Carson just did.
Right. Frankie Phoenix saying, take an entire class of millions of citizens saying you have no right to run for the presidency is crazy, right? All you need to do is be born in America and be 35, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tess saying, I wish he hadn't said that. It made me sad, but I don't think he should withdraw. Rachel saying, how can you discriminate against an entire religion? Rachel saying Carson's answer was more infuriating than Trump's, right? We kind of did talk about that. Joe Foley saying Trump clearly didn't hear him because Trump only hears what he wants to hear.
Les Chalmain is not on board with the Biden possible run. Biden is Elizabeth Warren. He's just the placeholder for her.
Carly is my new number one, Tess is saying. Tess used to be a diehard Carson fan. Oh no, Rubio is a very close second for me. I think Tess was the Carson fan.
Now, Samia, I'm glad you brought up Rubio, but actually Tess brought up Rubio. I think there is a possibility that if Trump's numbers continue to sort of level off, remember he's down 8 percentage points in this latest poll. Have we actually popped those numbers up in a while? Let's show people what we're talking about.
The ones we just showed them?
Let's do it again.
Okay, hold on. I need to find it.
Because there is one headline coming out of these numbers that not a lot of people are talking about, but I got to talk to you about it. I do think there is a possibility, Samia, that you have 3 big names that are all outsiders that possibly will sort of flavor of the month out. I mean, Trump and now Carson and now Fiorina, but we shall see. I do think there is the possibility that you could get into the last man standing.
Yes, right here.
The last man standing, and a guy who early polls did show would actually give Hillary Clinton a really good run for her money, and that's Marco Rubio. If, in fact, people eventually get tired of Donald Trump, if right now we're seeing erosion with Ben Carson, and these poll numbers are pre his anti-Muslim remarks, and if Carly Fiorina, for whatever reason, is on this main stage long enough that people decide they just can't handle her intensity, then you have Rubio.
Mhm.
I'm not making any predictions, but I'm not
number
going
one
to be
in terms
shocked.
of politicians.
I'm not going to be shocked if Marco Rubio is the nominee. I'm just not. He does so well in these debates,
Mhm.
and his biggest.
And he seems presidential. He just looks young.
That's his number one thing against him is his look. So I mean, if he were to grow sort of a Duck Dynasty beard. I like how you laugh, but you have a pained look on your face. You're like, oh, give me a break. Okay. But anyway, there's a headline coming out of those numbers that is worth talking about.
Les Chaumain saying, I'm done with Trump. I'm tired of those same slogans he keeps repeating. He sounded clueless about the world and politics and pretty much most things in general.
Yeah.
The same choice as Rubio. Do you want to hear Donald Trump on the phone? Are you interested in hearing Donald Trump's reaction to Fiorina and Carson in the latest poll numbers?
You bet.
Let's start with poll numbers. Ready, guys?
Here we go.
Everyone's ready.
Sure, I'd like to stay on top. I have stayed on top. I've been very strong on that. I get by far the biggest crowds. We did 20,000 people the other day at the Dallas Arena where the Mavericks play. We did 31,000 people in Mobile, Alabama. It was unbelievable. And, you know, we're getting crowds like nobody else is getting. But, you know, it's possible that I'll drop. Hey, look, I'm self-funding my own campaign. I'm not taking money from lobbyists. I'm not taking money from special interests. I'm going to do what's right. If I don't make it, that's okay. I'll go back to having a good time and building a business and being with my family and my kids. But this is a shot, and I'll give it my best. And I think people respect that I'm not taking money from the special. Everybody else is, by the way. Every single person is. I'm not taking money from special interests. Well, I think that she's got a good line of pitter-patter, but when you listen for more than 5 minutes, you develop a tremendous headache. It's, you know, if you've heard her, it's, you know, very similar. It's the same line. I've heard those same lines, you know, many times. And I think that that will fade, but I think it'll really fade when people look at her business record. She drove Lucent into the ground, a company that she ran. She then drove a big company, Hewlett-Packard. She made a horrible transaction. I mean, that can happen, but she made a horrible purchase when she bought Compaq Computer and was forced to cut thousands, tens of thousands of jobs. In fact, they're still recovering from her disastrous tenure. They cut 25,000 jobs last week. It was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. It's the company's never recovered. And it's so I think when people see what a horrible job she did as a business leader, then she ran for the Senate to Barbara Boxer. She was winning until they found out how bad she did in business, and frankly, she got wiped out and lost in a landslide. So I don't see it as being something that's going to last because her performance has been terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's going to say anything else, although this is titled as if he's...
Look, he's speaking his opinion. That's his opinion. And, you know, you're supposed to be, we talk about freedom of speech, he feels very strongly about it.
Was him commenting on Carson's comments.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I was earlier on, I wanted to say, the political instincts that he has, especially for a guy who's never been to this level in terms of public scrutiny and support in the polls, is he does have a pretty intriguing sense of the politics, because I said, how does he get himself out of this jam? Because I don't believe him that he didn't hear the question. I just don't.
Right.
So did you hear what his response was?
Yeah, he said he was just speaking his opinion, freedom of speech.
No, his other response, the quote I saw this weekend, was to kind of turn it into more of an issue about Obama, where his quote was, "I'm not obligated to defend Obama." In other words, he didn't even use the word Muslim
or anything
or Islam or anything like that. He just turned it into an Obama issue.
Right.
I'm not obligated to defend Obama. And who knows whether that then, whether that, I just think it's so interesting. His best friend in the world today is Ben Carson, because all of a sudden now, Donald Trump seems, yeah, it is.
That's what I'm saying. Donald Trump seems okay compared to Ben Carson.
That's exactly
Sorry.
right. Yeah.
Your boy Ben Carson, Rick.
So.
Here's Rick D'Amico.
Well,
He got himself in trouble, Rick.
well, he's on Meet the Press.
Yes.
I know. He said that he doesn't think that anybody that is a follower of Islam could be president or should be president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's catching some flack for it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah. How do you...
Donald Trump? I gotta go.
I know.
Donald Trump. I was telling Samia earlier that one person that thinks that the reason Donald Trump is so popular is not because he knows the issues.
Yeah.
It's because he just has this tremendous love for the United States. And some feel other politicians don't express that love for the country like he does. That's something to think
Is that
about.
right?
Yeah.
Gosh, I will have to noodle that around.
Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it?
Well, you do want to elect somebody who's running for the love of country and not for their, their ability to burnish their resume.
Right.
He's already got enough of a resume.
Remember Ronald Reagan and that shining city on
Yeah,
the hill?
sure. The other thing about Trump is these interviews he did on the phone, I presume that's with Fox and Friends.
Yeah.
This is the first time I actually heard him say, you know what, I'm going to give it my best shot, but if it doesn't work out, I got a great company to run. I can go back, spend a lot more time with my family.
And my family. I heard him say that this
Yeah,
morning.
yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
That's so un-Trump of him.
It was so un-Trump
Yeah,
of
but
him.
look where he is in the polls. He's doing so well.
Right. Yeah. But you also want somebody who feels that way, A, who loves their country, and B, who says, you know what, I want to serve my country. But remember when Mitt Romney gave his concession speech? Yeah, I mean, you got that same feel from him. He's like, I so would have loved to have served my country and to have been your president, but this is the will of the voters, and I'm going to go back to a great life too. So,
Go do the noon
see you, buddy. Okay, that's Rick giving us a minute
That was fun.
of savvy political chat.
Because he always talks about Ben Carson on the morning show, so it was good to get his take. Although he said little.
He's what?
He said very little on Carson. He's like,
Yeah, I
I'm just not going to comment.
Right.
Les Chomaine saying Rubio seems too perfect, though. You know how Al Gore lost because he appeared too perfect? Rubio is kind of like that, too. Tess saying, I don't know how Carson can recover from that statement. It's a shame because I really, really like him. Yeah, it is problematic.
Dee says, yeah, but Rubio was smart. Al Gore was an idiot. Well, the thing about Al Gore was he also seemed kind of in a sort of a goofy, nerdish, stiff
way
kind of way that I don't get that same vibe from Rubio. He does dress. He's always the best dressed man on the stage.
Yeah, he dresses very well.
I don't get the vibe that he is that sort of stiff, geekish way, but he's going to have to decide when to let more of his personality out, too.
Right. But the thing is, because he looks so young, I think that's why he's trying to be incredibly serious.
I think so, too.
Because the young guy is the one that makes all the jokes, right?
You're exactly right. But this brings me to my final point about this poll, which we have got to talk about. The man who tried to present himself as the everyman, as the one guy who could really relate to you, might as well close up his campaign shop doors today.
You mean Scott Walker?
Yes. The fact that he has now dropped, do you know where he is in this latest poll?
7?
0.
What?
He's at 0.
Did I not see that in the poll?
He's at an asterisk. He's at less than 1%.
Let's look at that poll again. I guess
He's now behind Pataki
and Jindal
and Gilmore
and Jindal and Lindsey Graham and Santorum and Kasich and
and the only reason Gilmore is getting any votes, I'm convinced, at all, is because people think it's Happy Gilmore. I don't think honest to goodness.
That.
I mean, he's completely toast.
Look at
so
that.
I'm in favor of when your numbers hit rock bottom, just spare us all, because what we really truly want to see is about 5 or 6 people. Give me the top 5.
So Trump, Fiorina, Carson, Rubio, and Bush.
Yeah. Christie's got to be like kicking himself. The fact was that was his best chance and his best debate performance, and he really didn't budge. He's still at 3%.
Do you think the whole bridge scandal?
No, I just
affected
think
him?
there are too many other candidates that are connecting with voters, despite his efforts to do so. I just think that bridge scandal thing is a huge New York story, but I don't think anybody cares about it in Iowa.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying a scandal's a scandal. Negative press is negative press.
Sure.
That's all.
Although he somewhat effectively was able to portray it as, again, you can never go wrong blaming the media, and saying, hey, they're against me. A lot of people gravitate toward that. I mean, he was somewhat able to bill it as, well, what do you expect from the New York Times? Because they're the ones that really were running with that story for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, the number one big story is that Fiorina quintuples her numbers from 3% to 15% based on the first chance a lot of people had to see her.
Right.
And that Trump's numbers and Carson's numbers fade somewhat. It just shows you, though, that Trump still has such a solid lead. But the other big story is that Scott Walker is, I think he can pretty much mail it in today and say, well.
How many more days do you give him, or weeks?
I think he raised a lot of money. I think he can hang on for.
So should he?
I think he can definitely hang on through Iowa.
Scott
because
Walker.
that's still his one chance. If he were to
Right.
somehow break through in next door neighbor
Wasn't
Iowa,
he polling well there?
very well, and that's his. I do think once Iowa comes and goes, and if he's not in the top 3 or 4, then that's probably about it.
That's when he'll retire.
So that's still
So,
end
who
of
do you
January.
think? This is my question. Once Scott Walker's like, you know what, I'm out.
Yes.
Who do you think he's going to endorse of these candidates?
That's a good question. Walker seems like the kind of guy who would probably support Jeb Bush.
I knew you were going to say that. I don't know why. I just won't.
Really? You should have written it down.
Oh.
And then revealed it to the audience before I gave you my opinion. So anyway. Fascinating poll. Let's wait to see, Samia. Let's not go too nuts. Let's wait to see some numbers on Tuesday and Wednesday and see how it plays out.
By the way, I think Les makes a good point. Ben Carson completely blew it. His answer should be, it is perfectly fine for a Muslim to be president. The voters have the choice to not vote for a Muslim too.
Oh, there were so many ways that he could have handled it. And his spokesman even came out today and said something like, he's not saying that a Muslim can't run. I don't know. It's sad to see anybody be, be biased against any group of race or religion or, anything else. They're just, I don't know. So I think it'll hurt him, but I also think that Trump's numbers might reflect a little bit of the concern that people had for him, even, coming out of that story this weekend. But again, he looks so tame by comparison.
Right.
And
Relatively speaking.
This is an everyday business.
Ben Carson did a great thing for Trump.
He really, truly did. So I think the other headline is Rubio seems to be coming out of this looking pretty solid. I mean, he's showing the growth in fear, but his numbers are doubling.
Right.
That's nothing compared to Fiorina.
Look at DJ Strachan. Ted Cruz had the perfect answer, in my opinion. Religious affiliation has nothing to do with ability to run this country.
Correct. That was the whole thing with Mitt Romney being a Mormon.
Right.
4 years ago, the Constitution says there's no litmus test for your religion. Let's go with it.
And he looks so presidential.
He had the look.
Look at the hair.
Which you thought that Scott Walker had that look too, that somewhat presidential look.
Not as much as Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney has the full look.
He's got the full hair.
I really think.
Which, by the way, what's the deal? Isn't he about 70?
Mitt Romney?
His look hasn't changed
he does not.
since the very first time he ran for president in like 2008.
He's 68.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at pictures of him today versus...
He totally looks like you know what? Mitt Romney still... I will stand by this statement that I've said for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Mitt Romney looks like the guy that you would cast as president in a movie. He looks like the stereotype of the president in a movie.
Which is funny because I don't know that you would say that about his dad. And he said that his dad was his whole inspiration.
Who's his dad?
Because his dad had, still looked like a businessman. His name was George Romney, and he had those sort of chiseled good looks, but he didn't have that youthful look that Mitt Romney at 68, almost 70. Now that's presidential looking, yes?
Yeah.
In a sort of a 1960s kind of way.
We can share that with the viewers.
Mm-hmm.
One moment, viewers. Oops. There we go.
So that's a presidential look for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny that in one generation, there's some sort of youth gene for Mitt that George necessarily didn't have.
What do you think about Les's comment? Les thinks that Mitt Romney lost because he was Mormon.
I don't know. I don't think so. I thought Romney did a really effective job of saying we got to go with the Constitution. And actually, I'm pretty well convinced it's not, and I'll tell you why. Because I think if there had been one group that would have been more opposed to him as a Mormon guy, would have been conservative Christians, because there's a lot of theological differences there. But that did not stop him from getting the Republican nomination.
Right, so it was more about, it was something else that prevented him.
Yeah, and I think it was
president.
really smart of Mitt Romney to go see Billy Graham's son, who in large part speaks for the conservative Christian movement in the country, and to say, I'm backing Mitt all the way.
Right, I think it's more that oftentimes people just like to stay with the status quo.
Yeah, sure.
I think it was more that Obama is the incumbent.
Yeah.
And naturally, you just are more inclined to be like, well, that guy's already there. You don't have to move anyone in and out. No moving trucks involved.
The other part,
and you just want to see,
right.
like, if
no moving
what
trucks involved.
I'm saying, you want
Right.
to see, like, how the rest of, if he had a full
Yeah.
opportunity, 8 years, what he could accomplish with what he
know.
said. So I feel like a lot of people vote like that, too.
I think so too, but I think if you really wanted to pinpoint it, I think it was his remark on the 47%.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That one. The
I
binders?
I really think that.
Too. Binders of women.
Yeah.
No, that was more of a joke.
That was more of a day or two for a meme, and it kind of came and went. But no, the 47% stuck with him the whole way through, and it made him seem. It's weird because Donald Trump, like he said, I got a Gucci store that's. Donald Trump embraces his richness. Mitt Romney is so minor on the richness scale compared to Trump,
Donald Trump.
and yet he was always kind of awkward about
But
his
no one's ever
richness.
talking about how Donald Trump's too rich to be president.
Oh no! Why? Because he almost has fun with it. If you can say, I'm so rich, I got a Gucci store that's worth more than him. Anyway. All right, that was good, Samia.
Amazing.
This, by the way, if you're just joining us now, that's an hour worth rewinding. That's good, solid political talk. And that is the
Thanks for hanging, Ron Hoon. On that note, what I am going to do is, since we're talking politics and Republican candidates, why don't we just listen to what Ben Carson had to say on Friday afternoon at the Heritage Action Forum. This was Friday before the backlash began. We're going to watch this. I know I showed you some of the candidates speak live on Friday afternoon. Some of them you missed, including Ben Carson, also known as your number 3 choice for president in terms of the Republican Party.
President Ben Carson would provide opportunity for all and favoritism to none.
Hello everyone at Heritage Action for America. I'm Ben Carson. You know, America is a place that was designed for the people. It was supposed to be of, for, and by the people. The government's role was to facilitate life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for the people, not for themselves. This is what I think has been forgotten. And one of the reasons that I've gotten into this fray is to see if it's possible, because I actually believe it is, to return America to the people at the pinnacle, the government there to serve the people. We need to have a government where everybody has equal opportunity. We don't give anybody special favors. Our Constitution guarantees the rights of every American citizen. but it does not guarantee extra rights or special rights for anyone. And when we can grasp that concept and not always be looking for the special treatment, I think we will go a long way toward reestablishing the kind of atmosphere that will allow America to grow once again and to thrive and to create a tide that lifts all the boats. And that is perhaps one of the things that has created the most friction and has allowed the purveyors of division and hatred to be so successful, creating a war on women and racial wars and income wars and religious wars and age wars, and basically you name it, they have a war on it. That's much more difficult to do when people feel that they are being treated fairly and equally, and that's where we need to concentrate. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Dr. Ben Carson.
Thank you for being here.
Dr. Carson, welcome, and your first question comes from Debbie.
Dr. Carson, you've had a long and esteemed career as a pediatric neurologist. As such, you've operated on babies in the womb. What has been your reaction to the Planned Parenthood videos? And what actions would you take as president to protect life?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here on my birthday. And what a great birthday present. Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, thank you. I guess the best birthday present is I heard Donald Trump had dropped out. Oh, wait a minute, that was just for today. Nah, just kidding. Actually, I think it's very important that we have all the different personalities and voices because they bring different people into the fray. People who used to sit on their hands, and we need everybody involved as long as they realize when the process is over, they need to get behind whoever the nominee is. That is a very important factor. Now, as far as Planned Parenthood is concerned, you know, my entire professional career dealt with trying to save children and provide for them quality of life. That's actually the reason that I'm in this now. And when I look at the things that they have done, and I look at their founder, Margaret Sanger, who was a eugenicist, who didn't like people who look like me, obviously I'm not that interested in anything that she founded. You know, I want to see, you know? So, but the worst part is that the majority of Americans disagree with the tearing up of babies and the destroying of human life that this organization is engaged in. So why should their taxpayer money be used to fund that kind of activity? What happened to America? And you know, we have a president who says, if funding for that is not in there, I'm going to veto it. Well, I personally believe that Congress needs to call his bluff on that, you know? And, you know, Congress has tools also. They can defund everything. They can defund his breakfast. So, you know,
Dr. Carson, last year the California Health Department ordered all state private health care insurers to cover elective abortions, even religious institutions. A bakery in Oregon was fined hundreds of thousands of dollars for refusing to cater a gay wedding. Do you think America needs greater religious liberty protections that are currently in place?
Well, we have a Constitution, and it has a First Amendment, which protects religious rights. What was not anticipated was a judicial system that considered itself supreme to everybody else. That was the problem. And if you read the Constitution carefully, makes it very clear that civil matters should be handled at the local or the state level. The reason for that, there was a very good reason for that, it's because the legislators and the judiciary at the state level have to respond to the people. They can be elected and they can be put out of office, but once you kick those things up to another level, then we begin to have a problem. We end up with an oligarchy, and this was never the intention. And the reason that we have a balance of powers and separation of powers is so that when one branch of the government gets out of control, the other branches are supposed to bring it back into control. And we need to start looking at some other ways to make sure that we don't continue down this pathway. And I guarantee the Congress that they do have the ability to take any kind of legislation, no matter where it came from, and to alter it in order to make sure that it's consistent with our Constitution, and that's what they should be doing.
Dr. Carson, in 2013, as the Senate was debating whether to grant illegal immigrants amnesty, you said, quote, "Of course allow illegal immigrants to have a pathway to citizenship." Last year, you suggested that those here illegally would need to leave the country in order to become guest workers. And this year, you seem to have suggested that guest worker status should be allowed for those in the country without having to leave first. What is your position on those in the country illegally, and how would you explain it to those Americans who are concerned about granting amnesty?
Okay, thank you. You know, one of the things that I've been doing is going around the country, spending a great deal of time listening. And I go to all sections of the country, every demographic, because the country is supposed to be of, for, and by the people. It's not supposed to be of and for any particular political figure or a figure that's non-political like me. So I have come to the understanding, particularly after visiting the border, that we can absolutely seal our borders. There's no question about it. And all we have to do is look at what's been done successfully before. You look at what was done in Yuma County in Arizona by using a combination of the right kind of barrier and putting people there to monitor it and having a judicial system that prosecuted first-time offenders instead of a catch-and-release program. It was extremely effective, and we can use that along not only the southern border, but we can use a variety of things to seal all of our borders, because it's not just people from Mexico and Honduras we're worried about. It's Islamic radical jihadists who want to destroy us. And we have to make sure that that's not the case. And in addition to that, if we cut off the goodies, there won't be any reason for people to try to get in here. Okay? Now, additionally, there's still going to be a group of people who are left here, and what do we do with them? I don't think it is possible to round them all up. Just the judicial system itself would be clogged up for many, many years to come. However, in talking to many farmers, they have told me that they cannot get anybody to harvest the crops and to take care of the crops. And I don't see any reason at all that we cannot have a guest worker program to get that kind of work done. Any kind of work that Americans don't want to do, we ought to have another mechanism for getting it done. But in order to be a guest worker, you have to have a pristine record. You have to sign up within a certain period of time. You have to pay a back tax penalty. You have to pay your taxes going forward. You don't get to vote, and you are not a citizen. So, additionally, I believe that we ought to be doing some of the things that allow companies to make a profit in other countries by developing them in terms of their agricultural facilities, et cetera, so that they can stay in their own country and be perfectly happy in doing so.
Can you give us a little bit more detail about the guest worker program? Would it be temporary? Would it be permanent? Would they be eligible for federal benefits?
Too much echo there.
Would a guest worker under your program, would that be a temporary program? Is it a permanent program? And would those guest workers be eligible for federal benefits while they're in the country?
I think those guest workers are not eligible for anything unless we, the American people, decide that we want to make them eligible for it. I think that's the way that it should work. And those are things that we can determine by questioning the people themselves. So, and that's the key point that I want to bring across, is that this country, America, is the greatest country the world has ever known. It is such an exceptional nation. And you know, before America came on the scene, for thousands of years, people did things the same way. Once we were on the scene, within 200 years, men were walking on the moon. And when people say we're not exceptional, they are not thinking. We are by far the most exceptional nation, and our job is to make sure that we remain an exceptional nation. And
Dr. Carson, our nation's debt picture is concerning. You yourself have noted that by some estimates, the federal government's debts accrue to $200 trillion. Yet you've also downplayed the need to address our entitlement programs, suggesting, quote, we shouldn't even talk about entitlement programs until we fix the economy. Many people feel our nation is on the verge of our own debt crisis. Dr. Carson, can we afford to delay entitlement reform before we face a catastrophic debt crisis of our own?
Well, you know, one of the things that I learned as a surgeon is that when people have complex problems, you have to address them sequentially, and it has to be in the right sequence. Otherwise, you will not have a successful outcome. Now, we have a terribly broken system right now. You know, we're not growing anymore. This is the most powerful economic engine that the world has ever known. And yet, it cannot work because it has been wrapped up with chains of regulation. And they come out every month, more and more regulations. Every single regulation costs us in terms of goods and services. It costs everybody. But who does it hit disproportionately? It hits poor people disproportionately. And that's one of the things that's driving the income gap that the left is always talking about. They say you can solve that by taking all the money from the rich. No, you can solve it by stopping all these stupid regulations that are driving up the cost for everybody. And you have to recognize that, yes, we have this tremendous debt, and $18 trillion. To pay that back at $10 million a day, it would take you over 5,000 years. We're putting that on the backs of our young people, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is the fiscal gap, the unfunded liabilities that we owe, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, governmental programs versus what we expect to bring in revenues from taxes and other revenue sources. If we're fiscally responsible, those things should be almost identical. But if they're not, there's a gap. Bring that forward to today's dollars, and you're talking a fiscal gap of over $200 trillion. The only reason we can sustain that is because we can print money, because we are the reserve currency of the world, a title that generally goes with the #1 economy in the world, which we were from the 1870s until last year when China became the #1 economy. Fortunately, they don't have the infrastructure to be able to become the reserve currency right now, but they are working on it. But here we are printing money irresponsibly. We decoupled it from the gold standard in 1971. It's just based on our good name, faith, and credit, which is not very good anymore. And if we no longer can print money and we continue down this pathway, we are headed for certain destruction. And what we must do is get our fiscal house in order, get the economy rolling again, fix the tax structure so that it can be roaring, providing excellent opportunities for people. And once we have excellent opportunities for people, that's when we reform the entitlements. That way, we have everybody on the same page and we're not persecuting people and making ourselves seem unfair.
Dr. Carson, do you anticipate in your first term proposing Medicare, Social Security reforms? Will you get the economy growing quickly enough that we can then move on to that next part of the sequence and reform entitlements in your first term?
There are a lot of people who say, you know, it took us years and years to get into this bad situation, and it's going to take us years and years to get out of it. I do not believe that. I believe that if we get in there and rapidly get rid of all of these horrible entitlements, and not horrible entitlements, but horrible regulations, we'll get rid of the entitlements too, but we have to do this in sequence. Get rid of the regulations, and we reform the tax system. We get rid of these horrible situations, and one of the ways that we can jumpstart the economy very quickly, there's trillions of dollars, at least $2 trillion overseas, that's not being brought back here. I can remember many an afternoon sitting around boardroom tables, and a lot of people don't know, but you know, I sat on the Kellogg board for 18 years, Costco board for 16 years. I was the chairman of the board of Vaccinogen, a biotech company. My wife and I built a national scholarship program that has won national awards. I have a lot of business experience. People think that doctors only know medicine. They're nuts, okay? But we would talk about all that money overseas and what we could do with it here, but we couldn't bring it back because the corporate tax rate was too high. Well, my suggestion, and what I would advocate if I got into office, is I would provide a 6-month hiatus of tax-free holiday so that that money could be repatriated into our shores at no cost to the American people. And my only requirement would be that 10% of it would be used to create jobs for people who are unemployed and on welfare. You want to talk about a gigantic jumpstart. That would be unbelievable. And there would be the biggest stimulus probably since the New Deal. And yet, it would be something that didn't cost our taxpayers 1 red cent. Those are the kinds of things that we have to be thinking about. That's low-hanging fruit. Absolutely no reason not to do something like that. And then we have to fix the tax structure for everybody. I want something that hits everybody in a proportional way. And if that was good enough for God, that's good enough for me too. And it should be good enough for all of us.
Dr. Carson, it's an honor to invite Governor Haley back onto the stage.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and happy birthday, Dr. Carson.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You know, I will tell you, in case you didn't know, South Carolina was named the friendliest state in the country, but you could tell when they sang you happy birthday. Absolutely. So they never let me down. You know, a lot of people have watched you and they hear what a conservative you are. But will you go back and tell so many of these people actually what your upbringing was? Because you weren't always a conservative.
No. You know, I grew up in Detroit and in Boston. I mean, you want to talk about blue places. If there was another color beyond blue, they would be that. And I grew up in that, and then I went to Yale University. You know, my goodness, talk about liberal. And then came back to the University of Michigan, and then went to Baltimore. I mean, so I was a radical Democrat, and I believed all of the stuff that they believed, including that Republicans were horrible, racist people. And then I started listening to Ronald Reagan. And he didn't sound that way. And I said, this man does not sound like that. And then at the same time, I was seeing all these patients coming in, and they were able-bodied people, but but they were completely subsumed by the welfare system. And I said, this is not working in their favor. And it's one of the things that I'm trying to get a lot of the downtrodden in our society to recognize. There are ways that you can get out of a state of dependency. Not listen to those people who are always patting you on the head and saying, there, you poor little thing, I'm going to take care of all your needs. That's not being kind.
And I absolutely agree. In a time where we're trying to bring more people into our party, what are we not doing right, and what can we do more of?
Well, there is no question we need to listen.
That's right.
And you know, one of the things that we do in this country is we've gotten into our respective corners and we fire hand grenades at each other. And it helps to facilitate what the left is trying to do. They're trying to divide us. They want us to think that there's a war on women and racial wars and income wars and age wars and religious wars, and they want us all to believe that we're each other's enemies, when in fact they are the enemy. And that's what we need to understand. And we need to go out into the minority communities and show them that there is a ladder of opportunity that will bring them out of a state of dependency. And we want them to use the talents that God has given them, working hard. We want to invest in our fellow man because it is our job to take care of the downtrodden. It is not the job of the government. We can do it a lot better than they can.
So, talking about different places and things, you practiced at Johns Hopkins, and so you know Baltimore. If you look at what happened in South Carolina and in Charleston, and you look at what happened there, what could have been or should have been done differently to cause a different reaction in Baltimore than what we saw?
Okay. Well, it was a story that was really missed by the media because they were looking for sensationalism and they wanted to talk about the flag and they wanted to talk about everything else. But in fact, the people at that church demonstrated the Spirit of God. It's the thing that made America great. And that's what we need to emphasize more in our nation. You know, the president likes to say that we're not a Judeo-Christian nation, but he doesn't get to decide what kind of nation we are. We get to decide. And I think if we apply those kind of principles in Baltimore, in Ferguson, wherever we are, reaching out to our fellow man with Christ-like attitude, I think we'll be in much better shape. And I got to tell you, I get a little bit tired of the secular progressives always trying to tell me that, you're not a good scientist, you're not a good doctor because you believe that God created the earth and stuff like this. Let me tell you, it's supposed to be live and let live. And we are, believing in God, think about this. It's on our money. It's in our founding document. Many courtrooms on the wall it says, "In God we trust." It's in every part of our fabric. If we can't talk about it, what is that? In medicine, we call that schizophrenia. And we can do much better than that.
But I want to ask just one more question. Everybody sees you as America's surgeon. Everybody wants you to be their surgeon. What do you want to say to them to make you America's president?
Well, I want America to recognize that this was not something that was on my bucket list of things to do. Okay? I was looking to retire. My wife was looking for that too. But after the prayer breakfast in 2013, you know, so many of you begin to say that this is something that I should consider. And I finally just said, Lord, if you want me to do this, all of the pundits say it's impossible, that you can't put together an organization, you can't raise the money, which really was quite a relief to me. But I said, I said, if you want me to do it, you open the doors. And if you open the doors, I will walk through them. And as long as they stay open, I will continue to do so, because I want the American people to once again be placed at the pinnacle of this society. This is where it was designed in our country, and this is what it should be. And thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, help us thank the birthday guy, Dr. Ben Carson.
All right, guys, that is a wrap on this event and on the morning edition of News Now. We'll see you again at 2 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Real quick, also, we're going to give you a live look at the tower cam outside from South Mountain, so you get a feel for what the weather looks like. Obviously, there is a flash flood watch in effect for parts of Arizona. Lots of rain expected today through tomorrow. In some places, 1 to 2 inches. It's possible in some areas 3 to 4 inches. So we'll have more rain coverage and lots more headlines today, this afternoon, 2 p.m. The afternoon edition of News Now will be starting then, unless there's breaking news. In that case, we would be starting early. See you guys then.
of division and hatred to be so successful